Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles, and welcome to Family Office TV, Angelo Robles Podcast, and SFO Continuity. Today, and it could not be any more timely, geopolitics and family offices. I'm going to give a little more context to a session and a guest than I normally do. This will be a long-form session, very intense, and hopefully a lot of incredibly useful and actionable items for our listeners, families, and family offices to act upon. Jason Law is our special guest today. He's a global thought leader in family offices and a profound thinker on geopolitics. Geopolitical risk has always been a constant, but the past year it's volatile and complex. From the persistent challenges of U.S. politics, conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, political instability, and is at the forefront of today's concerns. While the comfort of familiar processes may be tempting, single-family offices must recognize that traditional assumptions and strategies may not withstand the pressures of crisis and profound shocks. The key to navigating these uncertainties lies in family offices being adaptable and innovative. It's time for family offices to transition from reactive strategies to proactive, adaptive strategies that can effectively manage these challenges and capitalize on new opportunities. On that note, I'd like to welcome my friend and guest, Jason Ma. Jason, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's always great to be with you again. It's been a while, Angelo. Looking forward.
It has. We haven't done what I would call a podcast since my old platform of doing programming back probably during the late summer of COVID in 2020. We have kept in touch because we're personal friends. I saw you a couple of times in Beverly Hills. That was always fantastic. But even that goes back about a year and a half ago. So it's been too long, Jason. I'm a fan of yours, and I recommend every family, domestic and international, understand Jason, follow him because he's incredibly insightful. And I would, to pat both of us a little bit on the back, although others may feel differently at the end of the podcast, Jason, where I say we're the two people in the family office world that actively talk about geopolitical issues. For those of you that think that geopolitics are not as applicable for family offices, you are incredibly wrong. And actually, the research by UBS and other banks to billion-dollar-plus families that, admittingly, late last year, the number one concern in multiple research studies among family offices, especially international, is geopolitical. It was ahead of broadly the economy and inflation. So geopolitical is incredibly important. It is impactful in the investment portfolio, in mitigating risks, and a variety of different factors that are important to the rich, the successful, and family offices. Now, Jason, we have a whole module sequentially to follow, and I was looking forward to it, and we are. But before we get to a little bit more of the structured format, I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the last week, and really 2 weeks, and the last couple of days have been kind of interesting. And not lead with that, I think I would be remiss. So those of you that may watch this in the future, we're currently in early mid-August of 2024, and there simply is a lot going on. I'll set the stage just a little bit, and we'll get into it, Jason. The global economy is effectively crashing right now. Japan just had interest rates rise for the first time in years. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren, sold 50% of his Apple holdings, and we're literally what felt, at least heading into early yesterday, like a financial markets collapse. The good news is there's somewhat of a bounce back, and it's not maybe quite as bad as it was looking a short time ago. So this has negatively impacted individuals and institutions, and those that took out loans on the yen because it was paying zero and could effectively invest that, let's even say in U.S. Treasuries getting 4%, it's kind of known as a carry trade. And I can argue hedge funds and institutions really doubled down in it, and eventually it came home to roost. So on that note, Jason, although some could debate not purely a geopolitical issue, more macro and economics, but I think they intertwine. Why don't we talk a little bit about Japan, about the yen, the Bank of Japan, and some of the challenges that are set forth and may not be over with yet?
Right. There's an old Soviet joke, is that you may not be interested in politics, but politics is always interested in you. So just like what you mentioned, Angelo, is that if you don't pay attention, then you are beyond remiss, because it really impacts every single soul in the 8 billion population in the world right now. Japan, I love Japan. It's one of my favorite countries, and it's so fun to travel to, and it's just wonderful people to do business with. And one thing about the Japanese culture is that they are, very honorable. A big, from a business standpoint, American businessmen especially, I guess most businessmen, we always like to have the highest probability for predictability, right? And because we appreciate certainty, we don't like uncertainty. So Japan, from a business culture standpoint, has been operating from that first principle, or kind of baked into the DNA. Now, over the years, for a long, long time, the cost arbitrage was such, what's pretty favorable, right? You buy low, you sell high. And then with low interest rates, you could sort of, the carriage rate kept on rocking and enjoying itself. And people are able to take advantage of that. And then some of them even immediately convert into US dollar or something else because you get an immediate gain, or to use that to invest in something else, right? But now that is no longer the case. And especially given the Japanese culture, which is quite dynamically different compared to the more, I guess, a bit more resilient, adaptable culture within the American system, it really has created a bit of a ripple effect through the country, certainly. And some of the institutions and organizations certainly need to probably have to extract some cash and pay off some of the debts, et cetera, et cetera. Now, because Japan is a major market by itself, certainly it has impact throughout the world. But do I think that is gloom and doom? Not really. And, Japan is one of the major regions across the Asia-Pacific, Indo-Pacific sector, spectrum of cultures, if you will. And, it has its position in the world. And one thing that I feel for the Japanese is that they are a bit disadvantaged by a bit of I would not say a lack, but not as a robust of a entrepreneurship and innovation culture compared to, say, the Silicon Valleys in the world. So that has, because of the values and the principles and a lot of the, especially in the old days and a bit today as well, if you stand out too much, you might get hammered down by the group, right? It's a bit of a group thing, but that's a culture. There's a lot of strength to it. They're very good in careful planning. And when it comes to, they will take the time to do, careful planning, meticulous planning, positioning. And when it comes to execution, it's very swift, very precise, and that's how they are. But the entrepreneurship, the innovation culture, it's a little bit different. You do have to take calculated risk. You do have to kind of charge forward, right? And it's a separate subtopic. But at the same time, I will not be too panicky about what's going on with Japan.
Broadly speaking, I agree. And I think that we've seen some of the impact or some of the adaptation in the last 24 hours. Now, sure, the Bank of Japan's decision will shape, in my opinion, Japan's economic future, potentially risking instability and yen devaluation. But they made some choices that hopefully will be more positive. Our markets had a terrible opening on Monday of this past week, but definitely have gotten better. And I would say there's different controls in place and stopgap measures than, say, whatever October 17th in 1987 and other times where the markets went wildly downward. Now, we could argue that means there's some manipulation, that there's forces at work, that maybe things should play out more naturally. But again, we're not here to make this a deep debate or subject only on this topic, which I know is a little bit off the geopolitical subject. We are also going to get into a little bit later. And I said, it's been a crazy last 7 to 10 days about some of the impact of what's happening in the Middle East. We're going to save that to a little later. But I would go into related to what's happening in the last week and the impact that we're seeing this around the world. And again, we're going to talk about sensitive subjects that you're not going to hear any other people in the family office world talk about, partially due to ignorance and partially due to it's a sensitive subject, and they just don't have the guts sometimes to want to talk about it. And one of them would be the riots happening in Britain. So I could make the point, why don't I be a little controversial? Could I make a point just to create a subject that we could talk about, that multiculturalism is not working so well in the UK? That I think the immigration, you could argue, has been a huge mess, and the citizens are effectively, quote unquote, the natural citizens are demanding change. So I think this is, this could go down several different roads, Jason. Why don't I kick it off to you?
Right. The UK has always been, over the decades and decades, since the British Empire got a little bit diminished, right, has been a strong strategic alliance with the US, for sure. And we share much in common when it comes to culture, business, thinking, language, certainly. And what's happening in part of the UK today, it's not a derivative, but a variation of what's going on in various parts of the world. Now, I would not do a sweeping generalization about, using the term immigration. You have to chop it up into a couple of pieces, right? So you have good-hearted, value-adding legal immigration. And those are, for example, valued human capital into the tech industry, right? Because that's part of American strength, as an analogy. And you have legal immigration for various other, skill sets or et cetera, and those that are truly patriotic within the country to which they're immigrating into. And then you have the illegal migrants that got in, illegally. Somehow they do. Somehow it's government. The government might be against it. The government might be for it, or a hybrid in between. And in the U.S., that's a separate topic that you and I are going to talk about. But once that happens, once you have, say, a lot of illegal migrants into your country, what's going to happen is that, all right, they did not get in line to get into the country, number one. Number two, they really sucked up resources, time, energy, capital, and other resources available, or oxygen, if you will, right? A limited oxygen in the room, it's a figure of speech. Those do affect certain part of the citizenship. Now, maybe part of a citizenship are a little bit too much in terms of a radical thinking and behavior as a consequence. But some of them are really just frustrating and acting in anger and in doing that. I'm not promoting violence at all. That's not the truth. But you and I, we are seeing variations of that going on throughout the world, right? But at the same time, on the supply side, there are so many wars going on. There are, those that are, they just want to get out of the country, right? So it's a very complicated problem here. And I'm hoping that the UK, with the new, the prime minister there, and they're going to be able to rise above the situation. It's not easy at all.
Well, we shall see. Lord knows they've had their share of multiple prime ministers and challenges politically. They've made, in my opinion, more bad decisions than good decisions. And this is a broader picture and a challenge to Europe relative to different cultures that arguably are clashing. And it is complicated. We'll get to a little bit more of that later. But again, to assume that these issues are not impactful to families of wealth, not only from a hedging and investing perspective, but overall sovereign perspective, again, geopolitical risks, I could argue, are number one. So they're important to understand. Let's turn our attention where we'll probably stay for a while, to the U.S. We're going to get to Trump and Vance and, of course, Harris and Waltz, and be honest in our perspectives and ask tough questions on both sides shortly. But let's look a little bit more before we go micro, macro at some of the pictures. Thanks to some of your writing, Jason, you talk about topics like pro-business, growth, energy independence, lower taxes, USD, safety, border security, freedom, and world strength. That's a lot there that I'm throwing to you. Why don't I allow you to open the discussion about what you deem to be 7 or 8 core topics that I outlined, and maybe choose 1 or 2 if you want to dive a little deeper in there, broadly tackle each.
Tackle each. If you're referring to what, right? Certainly the most consequential decision is really the next regime in the US, because that'll absolutely impact and affect every single soul, in an 8 billion world population worldwide. And, we could talk about this as a cat today, and then the strengths that we have, and then the struggles, the challenges, but also the hope. And there are different, roadmaps we could take. It also depends on who's going to be in charge starting early 2025. We could slice and dice all that, Angelo, however you want it. So why don't we chunk it up? Sounds good?
Sure. So I know a lot of people in the family office world are going to be interested in kind of a pro-business aspect of the U.S. and arguably different directions that each party may have. I could argue that corporate taxes are too high. That's not beneficial to growth. And there's great challenges with employer and employee type relationships that vary drastically, not just federally, that would be more simplistically, but by state. Meaning, if I'm looking to start a company and I want to scale and grow it, why am I going to choose New York or California? And Mr. Wonderful and others have spoken about this. I'm not the first one. But I'm going to look at, and maybe it's because I'm just me and I'm thinking about my perspective in family offices. I want a regime and I want pro-business to be positive, because that stirs entrepreneurship. That spurs what I call the this relates to cash flows, employing people. When I employed a couple of people, and I go to I'm proud that I'm supporting people that are working, that are sustaining, that are buying resources and paying taxes. So why don't we start with business?
Right. I think a preamble is that I was, a lot of that research, right? In my practice, business, strength coaching, business, and investing, also like building our very exciting tech company. One piece of one article I ran across recently, and I've been, following, of course, A16Z, right? Bunch of VCs and investors and CEOs in Silicon Valley. We know each other, etc. Some of them I don't know, but I follow the work. So they wrote a article called "The Little Tech Agenda," the little tech agenda versus big tech. And America led the 20th century because we are preeminent in 3 dimensions. I cannot agree more in the entire article. I'll read this, okay? Technology. America drove the second industrial revolution through the 1930s, and then the computer revolution, the revolution since the 1940s. Number 1, technology. Number 2, economy. America's free market system created enormous societal wealth and dramatic improvements in quality of life for everyday people. Number 3, military. American military might drove victory in World War I and World War II, and then catalyzed the unilateral surrender and dissolution of the Soviet Union, right? So 3 things: technology, economy, and military. Not to mention, part of that is really safety, right? Well-being and flourishing, because, numbers matter, economy matters, safety matters. And we could go all day long, talk about what we can do to change and what's not happening today and what could happen tomorrow. And that said, I'll leave it to you for sort of, ask me questions, I guess, subset by subset.
Of course. Why don't we even transition to energy independence? So we exported, we are massive reserves. We're probably underperforming in terms of, let's call it, our drilling. Now, off the record, we don't hear about this much, but because I'm actively looking at oil and gas investments myself, I'm pretty connected in that area. They will tell me, a little bit to my surprise, Biden himself has actually not been that bad relative from drilling. However, Harris, they believe, could have a very, very different and radical perspective on that. I'm an advocate long term. I understand we need to have diversity. We need to have opportunity for alternative energy sources and should be working diligently on that. But in the meantime, until that's more of a reality and makes more economic sense, we have the resources here in the U.S., and I think we need to utilize them more and do more about it.
Absolutely. Let's stay with energy. Huge topic. Not only do we as a country, America, I believe that most of the audience here are Americans, but of course we you and I have so many friends around the world, right, who we love. We not only need to be energy independent, we need to be energy dominant. Okay. And you're into oil and gas and all that. And of course the woke crowd will be against that because they're so gaslighted. They don't understand how the world really works. And some of them talk, you fly there, you're wearing oil and gas product on your belt, on your tennis shoes, everywhere, right? It's very, very important. And I even am a board CEO advisor for a, kind of a oil, refinery downstream desulfurization system, because they would save CapEx, OpEx, and save, carbon and a lot safer as well, right? So it's like, how do we optimize all that? And like you said, Angelo, we have so much liquid gold, so much resources underneath our ground that we have to extract and take it back. Well, number one, to become absolutely energy independent sustainably, but also be energy dominant so that we could also export and add to our GDP. While I'm absolutely all for clean alternative energy. Don't get me wrong, right? Like grid solar is getting cheaper and cheaper. That's great. I would be very cautious about wind energy because, people talk quite a bit, a lot of gaslighting, it's great in certain places there. But the problem with wind energy is that each windmill has literally tons of non-biodegradable plastic in them. Right. And it's harmful for the environment, not to mention the kill birds. Right. So when we evaluate any potentially different choices, we have to look at both sides, supply side, the supply chain side, and the demand side. Make sure we're not gaslighted by different messaging for their own political and power gain, and realize what's really going on. In a way, it's a blessing, but also a curse that Russia-Ukraine war is going on. It's pretty bad, but that has actually raised the LNG part of our business as a country. But we must extract so much raw resources ahead of us, and really take advantage of that, because it's really good to add to the economy. The economy is the most powerful force, right? Besides the safety. So I think in summary, we have limited time, energy. I joke with people, we have limited oxygen in a closed door room. And how do we optimize and maximize results while it's really for the greater good, for the greater good of the nation here? And rather than say, spend all the time talking about, anti-oil, without understanding that we all going to have to depend on oil for the next decades and decades. So,
of course, completely concur. And audience, before I get to it, to give you a little bit of context, I have like 50 questions. We are going to go all over the world. If there's one subject that is not as applicable to you, likely within 2 to 5 minutes, we'll be moving on from it anyway. Stay with us. To some degree, it's quasi-sequential, and all kind of ties together. And live audience, specifically via my webinar function, and my members participate, ask questions, interact. Thank you currently, Scott and Robert. Appreciate your kind comments and logging in. That's all good. And by the way, for like the third time in 3 weeks, in incredibly valuable, important interviews like this one with Jason, and those of you in the greater Northeast, I'm not in Wyoming at the moment, I'm rural Connecticut. We're having a hyper humid summer. We're having a massive storm yet again, and hopefully, like 2 other times, I'm not going to lose power again. So we'll cross our fingers and hopefully we shall be good on that. Let's turn our attention, staying within the U.S., but this has a global perspective to it. USD, the dollar hegemony. I think back to Bretton Woods of 1944. We've had a long run as being the world reserve currency. Effectively, the world settles in dollars. The vast majority of Americans at family office centered, very wealthy Americans, probably are 95% plus dollar denominated. I am going to argue in the short term, probably not much of an issue with it, but somewhere over 5 to 10, probably closer to 10 to 25 years, nothing stays the same. Things will change. And if we're overly dollar denominated, and I know that gives us control now, meaning our deficit is terrible. There's nothing good I could say about it. It's irresponsible. But if we're the world reserve currency, we're kind of the king of the kingdom. But whether that's 3 years, likely not, 10 years, 20 years, maybe closer to 20 to 30 years. So we have some time to work on this, but if we don't start to act on it, it's not going to get better. Your perspective as a global traveler of understanding various cultures about dollar hegemony, the dollar versus its competitors, and the impact that the world is feeling with the dollar being king.
Right. Well, not to mention the things that I learned having attended, the Forbes Global CEO Conference 7 times out of 8 invites and being part of a G20. In the B20, which is the Global Business Advisory Council for the G20, I've been a member, one of the few Americans who got appointed every single year for the past 10 years so far. So I learned a few things. I see a few things. And, the US dollar, absolutely, it is the through line. It is a fabric through the world economy. Whether people outside of the US like or love or don't like Americans, they depend on American strength. If we crater, if we don't have the perceived strength anymore structurally and also emotionally, then our kicking the can down the road with a 35 trillion dollar deficit, it's not sustainable. So because we're still the hegemony, we're still the king of the kings, like you said, we have that a bit of a influence, if not control, over the situations that we're in, which is actually, we have to eventually fix it, but it's extremely difficult. Not to mention many other major markets, they are really affected by a deficit issue as well, including China. Okay. Now, you and I know that when it comes to the power, there has been one superpower for decades and decades until China became a superpower in recent years. And certainly we hear this audience is sophisticated. We realize that China is trying to, keep on doing business with the US, with the rest of the world, because of economic reasons. They have to, otherwise it's going to affect the economy big times. But at the same time, they want to reclaim some of the power of being one of the oldest, most advanced civilizations, right? So when you look at President Xi Jinping, I could understand exactly where it's coming from, the mindset, and then the third plenum. We could go into that later, etc. Right? Nothing surprises me. And certainly they're trying to expand the size of BRICS, for example. So not only BRICS, right? Not only Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They are inviting additional countries to strengthen that, because
Saudi Arabia and others.
Saudi Arabia and others. Saudi Arabia, we talk about that. We must talk about Saudi Arabia. They're very, very astute, right? Very, very powerful. And certainly it's a strategic process. China is very patient. They're very strategic, very patient, very methodical. And the government, because they have the advantage of a sustainable regime for a long time, and President Xi, that he's might be going for the 4th term, in my estimation, not only the 3rd term, right? And so because of that power, because of that that ideal, the ultimate vision, the mission, the goals that they have, including integrating Taiwan, that they see is part of China, is really faced in layman's term. I'll speak in layman's term. Is really pride in some ways, right? And not to mention dominance in chips and TSMC and all that, which is another topic we'll talk about, I'm sure. So I think I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let you ask more questions, so we could kind of go through.
You brought up some great topics that we'll also get into when we go to Asia and other parts of the world. There is a question that came in that I'm going to read from Sam. Thank you for your insights, Jason. Curious your thoughts, Jason, since you're headquartered in the Bay Area, especially on VC firms that have been heavily into PACs, ELA and A16Z kind of, right? But others, Harris. How is this driven financially? Now, I could make the point that Vance is kind of a Silicon Valley Peter Thiel pick. So is this good that they're putting their nose so deeply into politics? Are they concerned that the Magnificent Seven gigantic public companies have gotten too big, have made it harder for private companies and VC to succeed? And Vance has been on record kind of implying to break up some of these giant companies. So it's more than just how they feel in their heart. I think there's political interest at play here, but what is new? That's how the world works.
Right. I'm hearing two questions here. One is really politics and Silicon Valley. And the second thing is really little tech versus big tech, correct? Now, when you look at Trump and Vance is a very interesting guy. And same thing for all the candidates, Kamala and now the new guy, the new VP. Every person, every character, they're very interesting. And Vance, he's actually a very super sharp guy, very intelligent. Like got a kind of, after his Yale law degree and kind of worked for one of Peter Thiel's VC firm and really got immersed with part of Silicon Valley. Now, because I've been here for 50 years, right? You know me, I make friends with everyone. I make friends, good friends from the far left to the far right. From my perspective, I love everyone. That's how I am, right? And recognizing what's going on is that I'm noticing because of before Kamala got in, Biden was really very uninteresting to a lot of the people who would vote for him. And once Kamala got in, it's really a bit of a exuberance, right? And now Vance certainly has cracked open more within Silicon Valley, has motivated part of Silicon Valley to be a bit more vocal right now. Because you and I know that we're not stupid. In Silicon Valley, in California, it's really primarily a blue state. But I do know as a fact that despite across the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley, which includes San Francisco, even Berkeley, it's really a mindset all the way down to the South Bay. And the South Bay, since we're in the family office, ultra net worth crowd, South Bay where I live, you have the highest concentration of ultra net worth individuals per capita right here in the South Bay. We're all in jeans and t-shirt, right? But it's a very casual. And so it's interesting that Vance has made an advance along with data sacks, with the billionaires out there, including Sequoia Capital, former managing partner Doug Leone, plus a whole bunch of, not to mention Peter Thiel, plus a whole bunch of powerful people who used to be less vocal, less overt. Mm-hmm. But because of Biden, because especially of the God-saving assassination attempt to Trump, that people go, F this. I'm going to just come out and speak out. You can list who I am, right? So I'm seeing more and more people coming out of the closet. And just to let you know, in despite the Bay Area being majority, say, Democrats, in Atherton, which is the most expensive zip code in the entire nation, Atherton. And I bet you that it's probably one half Republicans, one half Democrats, and some and independents, right? Because in Atherton, you have a lot of the captains of industry living there, and a lot of them are really kind of astute enough to realize, even though they want to sustain the power, but not to the extent to the compromise of American people, right? Because they really care about like what Andreessen and Horowitz mentioned about strong technology, pro-technology, pro-innovation. Pro economy, pro military, right? When you talk to them and realizing where they're really coming from, what's important to them is that they want to make sure that technology is going to flourish, innovation is going to flourish. And one of the things I like about what Ben Horowitz wrote, now Ben Horowitz and Mark Andreessen, these guys are billionaires, right? Ben was a Democrat for a long time. He voted only Democrat. He grew up in Berkeley. I went to Berkeley, hyper liberal, right? And then when he was growing up, his friends, a lot of them were black and all that. correct? He loves hip hop. My older daughter loves hip hop.
Yes, he does. Since the 90s. He's a rap legend.
But recently, he goes, F this, I'm going to vote for Trump. Here's why. All right? Because regulations. Because because that certain party is for Kamala. Kamala is even more woke and more left and far left progressive, far left woke progressive than even Biden. She's the most woke politician ever in the U.S. Senate, etc. It's like, it's scary as hell. Because the agenda, there's nothing wrong with some of the agenda out there. I grew up in San Francisco. It breaks my heart about the deterioration, right? But I do think that it's got signs of revival. And, you have limited oxygen. There's nothing wrong with some of the agenda. In fact, I empathize with some of the woke agenda. But then again, there are more important problems to solve for the masses. And it's not the woke agenda, right? You want to make sure that we are indeed safer. We are really flourishing as an economy. And you're really being more true to what's really going on, and not to allow yourself to be so gaslighted, right? So going back to Silicon Valley and Vance, I think it's a great combination. And when you look at the regulation and for example, for Ben Horowitz, right, and Mark Andreessen, he said that, okay, regulations, we care about regulations. The one that really hit me is the following, right, is that, and the government today is currently proposing, the Biden administration is currently proposing a tax on unrealized capital gains. Are you effing kidding me? That would absolutely kill both startups and venture capital industry, not to mention the family office industry. It's got $10 trillion dry powder, not to mention the ultra net worth, high net worth individual investor industry, not to mention the angel investment industry, not to mention the entrepreneurs, not to mention the executive employers who's got stock options and all that. That's extremely destructive, right? So I think what these guys are realizing is that, oh my God, man, we have to really fix the bad regulations, anti-business, anti-startup, right? And also put in some empowering regulation that's going to accelerate, reset path, and lift up business. That's the most important thing, you see? So that's what Vance is representing, right? And now when you look at the other side, and I know a bunch of these people, right? When you look at the Democratic billionaires who like to vote, they're excited about Kamala because everyone is relieved that Biden's not running. So it's like major relief. I'm going to put in money right off the bat, right? But when you look at where they're rolling coming from, it's really about sustenance. It's about sustainability of power. Okay, do they really empathize and understand, or really effectively empathize and be compassionate with the masses? I don't see that. Somehow the relationship circle, somehow the power base in which they're in, they want to sustain the power. They're going to go with these guys. And sometimes I see the messaging and the gaslighting. It just amazes me. That's not how the world works, but it keep on saying that. I could go all day long on that, but I think there are more questions.
Again, and we're going to get into Trump, Vance, and Harris and Waltz in probably a couple of more minutes. Staying on maybe one more topic that somewhat is U.S.-centric and really, well, definitely U.S.-centric. I just simply have to say these two words, and I'm going to ask you for your commentary. Border security.
Border security. It pisses me off. It pisses off so many people, okay? And, 11 to 15 million illegal migrants got admitted during the Biden administration. Okay, let's just do some simple algebra, okay? Let's say 11 million, okay? 1% of that, assume 1% of them are real bad people. They're terrorists, prisoners, rapists, murderers, right? Our daughters might have a higher probability of getting raped. And then our parents and grandparents might have a higher probability of getting into a unfortunate violent crime situation, okay? So 1% of 11 million, that's 110,000 people spread throughout the U.S., okay? Sanctuary cities and also other cities as well. So you're really decreasing the safety in America, number one. Number two, you suck up more resources that are supposed to be more assigned to Americans, including the homeless, including the poor, including disadvantaged souls out there. Okay, whether you're white, black, Latino, Asian Americans, it sucks away resources for them. Is that fair to America? And you cut in line. And you also get paid to live in certain places by the current administration. And because their intention is quite clear. No one is stupid. The intention is to try to get as many of these illegal migrants, get them converted as quickly as possible into votes. That's the main reason they do that. It's evil as hell. It's evil as hell. Okay? In the Bible, the oldest sin known to mankind is the Eve, Adam, and saying the evil one, the devil, through the servant story, right? It's deception. So when you look at these messages from people, and I could see a lot of gaslighting, even by billionaire VCs in Silicon Valley, it amazes me that they know it's not true. They still say this absolutely untrue, deceptive message. It amazes me. I don't know why they do that, right? I kind of know why. And so in summary, we have to fix the problem, okay? Closing a border is simply a tactic, but we have to also close the tunnels, dig within part under the borders and no borders. And you know, this problem should not have started and let persist for such a long time. Now our country, our resources, our limited human capital, lives, and certainly capital money have to deport some of the bad people. It's a massive effort, okay? That problem should not be there in the first place. But we have to do that because we're really reducing, strangling, I would not say strangle, but reducing the rate of our problem solving, our rate of advance to be great, to make America great. Not again, but make America even greater. I really believe in that, you know, make America even greater. So we have to fix that. It's a massive issue.
Jason, I have a whole series of questions, probably 6 or 7, dedicated to the upcoming U.S. presidential election. We've touched on it indirectly a little bit. We'll now start that relatively deeper dive. Again, I got like about 20 different subjects that we have to cover. So relatively deep maybe means we'll spend 7 or 10 minutes on it. In the last month, we've seen Trump, an assassination attempt, and the slightest turn of the head could have made the biggest difference and arguably could have led to a civil war.
Yes.
And we have incompetence in the Secret Service. We don't really know the full story, and I don't think we ever quite will. This is just how governments that are powerful work. And when you have powerful cabals and people and powers that be that we didn't vote for, that are impactful to the decisions of our so-called leaders and others, it creates a great challenge. Mm-hmm. We then had Biden doing the right thing and bowing out of the race. So Trump probably had a little bump in the polls with the assassination attempt. And no question, the Democrats had a bump in the polls with Kamala leading the charge this upcoming year in the election versus Trump. Now there's been a little bit of leveling off on both, and here we are. So we now know the tickets. It'll be Trump and Vance, which we covered a little bit, and Harris and Walz. The Walz part being very new, just really the last 24 hours. Why don't I get your broad macro opinion about how that's shaping up, and then I'll be more targeted with about 4 to 5 questions.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, it was an absolute miracle that Trump did not die. And we all know as a fact that split second tilt the head. Otherwise, the bullet would enter his ear or part of his, back of the head, right? But that didn't happen. And, whether you're not a believer in faith, that was a God bless moment. Maybe, maybe God, it's a saying a message, right? So I think overall, when Biden was in the running, certainly even a bunch of my Democrat friends, right? And by the way, Angelo, you and I know that the vast majority of Americans, we're around the center. We're around the middle. We know that. 70% plus easily, right? And you have the kind of the more radical left, radical right. Those are not good news, the radical ones. But most Americans are actually around the middle. We're reasonable center people, want to get on with our lives and grow and prosper and be happy, right? And be safe. That's who we are. So because the clear signs of Biden's being senile, and obviously it's been covered up by the current administration, along with the mainstream media, mass MSM. The joke is that they're part of the party, and et cetera, and vice versa. You know, when Biden was in a running, whoever the, and Kamala was a VP, my estimation is that, okay, it's going to be a landslide and Trump might even get over 400 electoral votes. Biden's going to get 100 some, totaling 533, right? Electoral college of 538 or something, 540, 538, I think, total. So now, because Harris is in a running right now, then the diehard, the TDS people, I hate to say it, but they are, right? The Trump derangement syndrome, not to be, but I just want to speak the truth, right? There's still a good percentage of the population got the Trump derangement syndrome, and you got the never Trumpers sitting on all sides of the spectrum, Republicans, independents, and Democrats. And then you have those that like to traditionally stick with the Democratic type of feeling, correct? So those are pretty steady. I think the minds are made up already, no matter what. Now, when Harris is now the replacement candidate along with Waltz, certainly a lot of the hardcore people who's going to be voting for Democrats anyway, plus a few others, the independents, some of the independents might think that, oh, you know what? I'm excited because there's a new candidate right now. And I think, I would not say it's a dead cat bounce, but certainly the margins will be much narrower, my estimation. I think when it comes to the traditionally Democratic and the traditionally Republican states, I don't think they're going to change much at all, right?
Like come down to about 7 states.
Right. California is going to stay Democratic. They might even pick up on
some lies, Jason.
Right. But it's interesting though. I'm seeing a lot of people shifting to the right. Very interesting.
More so in Orange County on that. It's a little,
but you might be surprised. Some people in Silicon Valley as well, right? But the popular vote percentage may not change much at all. So that's a given, right? Now, it boils down to primarily the swing states. We all know that, right? You got Minnesota, you got Michigan, you got Pennsylvania, you got Georgia, you got Nevada, you got a few other places, correct?
Correct. Arizona, Wisconsin, etc.
Right. I think it'll be interesting. Now, back to what Andreessen Horowitz wrote. It's about technology, and we could go all day long talk about China and technology as well. We have to sustain and build and become even better in our technology innovation, because that's going to be hyper impactful across various sectors, right? Verticals and horizontals. We have to reclaim and make sure that our economy is not going to crater. We've got a lot of massive issues, but I believe that if we could get ourselves more synergized as our economy, okay, more galvanized, and apply our resources and strength and skills, man, America is not coming to an end. There might be a revival of American greatness for the next decades and decades, right? And China might not even become the biggest economy in the world ever at all, given their deep issues, including, demographics plus real estate plus other issues, right? They got a lot of strength, that's for sure. And we have to be strong in military, not so much by, building next generation tanks, but we have to be hyper superior in space, in cyber, in AI, right? AI, you and I are going to talk deep about that. I'm concerned and excited at the same time. So I think the exuberance for the Harris now with the Waltz administration is going to die down a little bit. I think when it comes to September, especially October, around that time, I think more and more Americans realize that, you know what? Some of us has been gaslighted too long. That's not the truth. Let's stick with the truth. Let's stick with fundamentals, because we want our kids to be prosperous. We don't want to have that crazy woke, that far left progressive woke thing to really ruin us. And for those who don't like to listen, would like to stay that way, I feel for them. But for those that like to opt in and kind of let themselves to have more of an opening to recognize what's really going on, how do you contribute and how do you live a better life, right? Then we could have the conversation as well. So I think I'll stop there.
No, there's a question that came in relative to me. Angelo, given you're half Puerto Rican, how come you're not down with quote unquote DEI? My audience knows I'm not. I believe in equal opportunity, and I agree some of us don't get that, and that's a problem we have to work on. I do not believe in equal outcomes. I believe in playing the victim mindset. I believe the world might be against you. You might be right about that. Certain people think the world is against them. Strong people don't give a boop if it is. You have to overcome. You have to be better. Don't play the victim. It's too comfortable. And to me, it's not really DEI. It really is DIE. It's unacceptable. I believe in meritocracy, period. So you have me a little riled up there.
Oh my God. First of all, guys, understand that the DEI concept originates from Marxist ideology, okay? Especially the E in between, equity. Be very careful, okay? We are all, whether your skin is purple, black, yellow, white, we all created equal by God, okay? But it doesn't mean that we're going to become equal. We created equal, but we may not be born equal. We may not be building ourselves to be equal in terms of, you paid $15,000 for a first class ticket on Singapore Airlines versus paying $1,000 economy. I support people who fly economy, but it doesn't give you the equal right to walk to the first class cabin and kick out the guy sitting in a first class seat, and I'm going to take it. That's not right. Okay, that's equity. That's not right. So especially, when it comes to D&I, I talked about this in a recent conference, in the Legacy Builders Conference, right? And Steve Young was there, former 49er superstar quarterback. I sure like it vice versa. We befriended, etc. And we talked about DE&I. Now, just to let you know, you don't have to be in faith, right? But a little bit storytelling in the book of Revelation in the Bible. Good D&I has been talked about at least 7 times, right? Your diversity of your languages, of your ethnicity, your races, your tribes, your nations. Those are good diversity because God wants you to be. God's very inclusive, right? He wants everyone, right? Jewish and pagans and the Gentiles, etc. Right? Now, however, the E in the middle, especially to be very careful. Like you mentioned, I'm totally with you. You don't want to be victimhood mindset and be dependent on the government. That's how the D party wants it, because they want to control big government. They want you to be sustainably, consistently depending on government so they only you get your votes, right? However, that's victimhood mindset. China laughs all the way to the bank. That's how you deteriorate relative rise your competitive advantage. You want to be merit-based, right? Not victimhood-based. You want to be the best person for the job, not because you're a woman, because you're Black or Latino, okay? Unless you're a woman or Black or Latino or Asian American who's superior in your skills, in your productivity, in your performance, hire the guy. Absolutely, right? But if you hire based on quotas of DE&I, that's just called stupidity. And once you have a czar, a VP, SVP in a corporation, in a nonprofit, in a big university that runs DE&I, the first reaction from me is like, oh my God, that's bad news. Then you can actually diluting the merit, diluting the quality of the institution. Then the DEI head is going to get all political because all of a sudden he or she wants power to keep on getting paid for her job, hire more people, so she builds a little system to get more power. And then inject a DE&I employee or rep in board meetings, in management meetings, in other meetings, that sometimes, even though intention might be good for their agenda, but it's actually very distracting. Then you got limited time. 1 hour, you got to go. Limited time, energy, oxygen in a room. Then you get distracted. The whole thing gets diluted, not merit-based, right? So go, and then that's that part of DE&I, the E&I. The E in the middle, especially equity, be very careful about that. It comes from a Marxist ideology. Marxist is a theory to communism. So it's that simple, guys, right? ESG, for example, that's good ESG, but the problem is that there's so much greenwashing out there And then when you look at a lot of corporates, they talk about that, they implemented part of that here. It's really for the marketing message or the marketing communication to sound good, to satisfy the woke part of the company, the woke part of the ecosystem that they serve, kind of even nonprofit governmental here. But that is coming to die. That is coming to die. People, you got Bill Ackman really voicing the problem with this woke agenda. He's a Jewish guy, billionaire. A lot of people love him, smart as hell. Multi-billionaire, donated at Harvard. You know me. I help tons of kids, right? That's part of my family business. Prepare real well, get admitted to Ivy schools, right? Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, Brown, Cornell, Penn, Columbia, Stanford, MIT, Berkeley. I got so many kids in there. Okay, I'm so glad. At the same time, I've been very concerned about all the power these big universities have, the private universities, because they got tens of billions, a lot of them, right? The Harvard's 100 billion endowment, the Harvard Corporation. I think the top people in the Harvard Corporation makes more money than all the professors and admin combined, right? So they got a lot of power. They do a good thing. They really take care of some of the poor kids getting in. They really do a good thing. But the woke part of the leadership is getting out of control. So I'm so glad that's been lifted out, that you cannot be all powerful. I'm so glad that they're getting your asses kicked in some ways. It's a good thing. So people are normalizing a little bit more. I just want people to be very careful about the dark side of DEI and ESG.
Of course. And very good comments. So we're going to get back to kind of a little bit of the Trump and Harris. So Camilla has, and I'm going to talk some stuff about Trump too. So audience, I'm going to be try to be fair and balanced, I promise. But Camilla never won a primary. She is limiting herself to be very, very restricted. And when she was a little off script in some interviews, wow, is she putting her foot in her mouth? But I promise I'm trying to be fair and balanced. Like that Trump going to the Bitcoin conference. And I'm assuming he's not really that knowledgeable about Bitcoin, but he gave an hour-plus speech. It was kind of impressive. You have them, and I'm going to get the name a little wrong, being a little bit ambushed, in my opinion, at the Black Journalist Conference in Chicago about a week ago. And I think some of his comments did not help him, and they were a little too flippant, and he couldn't have been more thoughtful. I would agree on that. But there's no question that was not a friendly interview. And by the way, Kamala didn't want to go to it, apparently. But Trump does things that probably may be to his detriment sometimes by talking too much. Kamala's being very, very scripted. I just don't feel in my heart that she has the qualifications, the inner qualities to be a leader in a world in chaos. I'm willing to be proven wrong. If she gets elected, I sure hope I'm wrong. But I'm looking at this, and again, I promise I'm going to ask questions that are going to be challenging to Trump. I'm just having a hard time buying into Harris as a candidate.
Right. Well, we could talk about the flaws and imperfections of Trump as well. But let's look into Kamala, right? San Francisco. I grew up there, right? I know some of the powerful people in that network. And, it's a hyper-progressive woke agenda. I got a lot of friends in San Francisco. Don't get me wrong, right? Most of my friends are Democrats and all that. And I'm kind of in the middle, right? Now, when you look at Biden, it's clear to every single person who has a heartbeat in the brain that he was senile. So when he opens his mouth off script, immediately, you don't have to say anything. Let him talk. Then you're going to cringe, right? It's cringe-worthy moment every minute. Now, Kamala, she's 59 years old, 60 years old, kind of a tail-end boomer, I think. And she is sharp in certain ways when it comes to prosecution as an attorney, but as a prosecutor, but running for president is a very different animal. You need to be super visionary. You need to be able to articulate your vision that people buy in without looking at a damn teleprompter. It's got to be burned into your soul, your mind, your heart. You'll be able to articulate that, and you got to be honestly truthful, right? Now, I see Trump, one imperfection he has, is really, all the hyperbole, all the kind of white lies, right? But I see that a lot with all of a boomer New Yorkers that grew up in New York City. That's how they talk. So don't take it too literally, right? The joke is that if you depend on news, if you focus on news every single day, you're going to be distressed. If you focus on yourself, you're going to be depressed, right? But if you focus on Jesus, you'll be at rest, right? It's but so it depends on your mental focus. When it comes to Kamala, like you said, she really, I think recently Blinken even mentioned to protect his job that, Kamala is super good when it comes to foreign policy. I had a gustatory reaction to that. Is, when you let her talk without teleprompter, just let her talk. Let her spill her guts out. Then you see the true colors. Like you and I are talking without teleprompter. We're being ourselves. I'm being.
You have to trust us on that.
Well, therefore, I'm being candid because I just want to love and serve and be candid. And if my part of my message is useful to you, good for you, right? I'm here for you. I'm not here for me, right? So when it comes to Kamala, she really does not have the intellectual power and the critical thinking, the problem-solving skills in this very complicated world, macro to micro, global, international, national, regional, all the way down to local geo, okay? And the horizontal and vertical. She doesn't have that astute vertical vision, problem-solving that's burned into a system in her mind and soul. Simply zero. But because she's Kamala, because of the powerful, well-oiled democratic machine, it's like a super PR machine propping her up no matter what, no matter how bad she is, right? They're doing a great job. They do that. Wait till you see the ads is going to come out, right? September, October. And so I'm not, if she's going to be the president, I could assure you, everyone here, okay, the way that a lot of strong leaders in different countries out there, how they work, President Xi, President Putin, like the Iranian head, etc. These guys are autocratic, right? These guys are very strong in their ego, in their resolution, in their vision in some ways. And they prefer to deal with people that are strong, that they respect. At the same time, when it comes to relationship, the first thing about leadership is to be self-aware, right? One of the first things about relationship is about respect. If you don't give the other person respect, they're not going to respect you. If it happens over time, the other person is going to keep on doing things like North Korea. That's going to say it's kind of like saber routing. It's like, you're not respecting me. F you. Here's what I'm doing. I'm building in the loop, right? So that's what they do. And Kamala, I'm afraid that when she goes on the world stage, these guys are not going to respect her. They're going to keep on laughing at the Biden administration and the Kamala administration, laughing their ass. So I was like, look at these idiots out there. I don't respect them.
Jason, if you don't mind, ask a question that's a hypersensitive question.
Right.
Is the fact that she's a woman going to make it more difficult with the leaders that you mentioned?
Maybe or maybe not. I don't think it's really a matter of being a woman or your skin color or your ethnicities. It's a matter of your leadership, of what they perceive you and a country that you represent. And are you really effectively respecting them, working with them, or at least competing in a way that is not going to aggravate them again and again and again, right? Now, there is some aggravation because we do have a lot of power in our economy, et cetera, et cetera. You do have to kind of use your big stick sometimes. The problem is that when it comes to the powerful leaders out there outside America, they're just not respecting the U.S. as much that we can deserve. That's all. So when she goes on a world stage, I think she's going to be laughed off and people are not going to take her that seriously. But they have to take her seriously because we are America. We are America. So that's one of the concerns.
Now, could I make the point that she may understand and know this, and she may try to overcompensate, be super tough, and be someone who may react too quickly in a way that would not be long-term to our benefit?
That's another concern. She could, like Biden, one of the things that really concerns a lot of us, myself included, is that they raise the probability for World War III.
Yes.
World War III. There are things they could have done that would have prevented some wars, that saves trillions, right? Dollars. saves countless lives out there, a bunch of American lives, that also give us more resources back or keep the resources so that we could flourish even better and not experience these, struggles. 60% of Americans struggle, live paycheck to paycheck, right? So we could spend more resources more wisely. Now, I understand and appreciate for-profit business. Military industrial complex is for-profit, also government. It's very intricate, part of the deep state and all that. I respect the business, but then again, it's not good for America. It's not good for the world in certain ways if you over push it, you see. And then there are certain things, how they communicate, how they manage a relationship with these countries out there, that could have prevented those things from even starting in the first place. But once you start it, you have to manage it. You have to wipe your assets. Right? You have to you have to fix it. It pisses me off. Sure. Excuse my friend.
In being fair and balanced, could I make a point that Trump arguably lacks character? That is he a team builder? It wasn't necessarily so great on the team building side in 2016. And is it fair to have some concern that he has some Putin in him and really would like to be a dictator?
Right. Very good point. Very good point. Let's analyze Trump 1.0 versus potential Trump 2.0 right now. Now, when it was Trump 1.0, he was raw. He was a anti-deep state. He was sort of anti-establishment. And because it's so rough and tough, when you get in, obviously you're working with enemies all the time, right? You're going to have people against you. Because let's face it, I mean, I would not call it, I don't know, you call it deep state, whatever. There's a lot of individuals that are not elected. They're very powerful or influential, work together, silo work together in Washington and beyond. We all know that, right? They are pretty much very influential. They are there. And they do a lot of good. A lot of them do some bad as well, okay? And when you have an overblown of, when you have a lot of people that are actually not necessary, they're going to create work that could actually make it worse. And they get paid for making things worse. You see that happen in Washington all the time, right? Now, and then it's certainly not a secret that not dozens of the people that directly or work for Trump at higher levels, they felt it was maybe backstabbed or kind of not treated well enough. And maybe Trump could have done a better job back then. Maybe from a psychology standpoint. And then, but then again, when you talk to even like Chamath, right? When you talk to a bunch of even Democrats and all that, the billionaires and powerful people, they said that, you know what, come to think of it, actually, upon reflection, even though I was totally anti-Trump, I was against him, but come to think of it, a lot of his policies were actually real good. Actually made the country better. Not perfect, right? 1.0, it did not have the transformation system oil machine set up yet. Now it's Trump 2.0. Now Trump's got a lot more power. Our party is a lot more oiled. It's a lot more integrated, right? He learned a lot as well. And it's not like Biden, right? Totally senile, right? I'm not even sure about Kamala could even learn in that fashion. But I'm seeing absolute transformations in Trump, which is delightful. So, for example, he talked to a lot of Silicon Valley people, learn about crypto, learn about Bitcoin. He was willing to learn. And for example, the way that it treats a lot of people, when you look at a Trump organization, right? The employees you talk to, no one talks bad things about him. He treated employees real well, the hospitality business. One thing I like about fathers, right? The first thing you look at, I'm a father, you know that, right? You know what I do, chief mentor, next gen leaders. One thing that I look is that look at the relationship between the parent and the kids. Okay, is it pretty effed up, right? Persistently, or is it real good? You see the relationship between the Trump kids and a father, he's a good father, man. Is it perfect? No. Did he fail in marriages? Yes, right? Did he learn from part of that? Yes. Is it perfect? No. Is it still flawed? Yes, we all are, right? So that shows a good character in him. And he's a bit of a baby Christian as well. And I think overall, I think I've been seeing some character improvement. So for those that are gaslighted or use a message about, oh, Trump's going to destroy democracy or he's got a bad character, I would disagree with part of that. If you speak the truth, speak the fact. Now, he's so attacked by the MSM, etc. Okay. Or like you mentioned about ABC, right? About the Trump in a black journalist event recently. The aggressive interviewer, she's part of ABC, part of MSM, and she was very impolite, very aggressive and provocative. And if you talk to a president, first of all, when you talk to a president, no matter what side you're in, you want to be very respectful. You want to be objective. I mean, certainly you have an agenda, but you don't want to be too overt in your agenda. That was a little bit too much, I think, you see. And I think, Trump was probably, he's very truthful in a sense. He's hyperbole sometimes. Some white lies here and there. But I prefer a person who would have white lies, hyperbole over deep, dark deception and messaging any day, you see. So overall, Trump does have flaws, right? He's a New Yorker. That's how he talks. Over the decades, there's been a consistent cultural conflict between older New Yorkers and the Californians, right? It's a communication conflict, right? So don't take it too seriously in some ways, right? So.
Well, I mean, very interesting. I'll have two more questions, and trust me, we have a lot of topics to cover. There's no way this is going to be a 2-hour interview, so we'll see if I can rival what I did with Carolyn Pepper and Adam Robinson in the last couple of months and break like Joe Rogan-like type records. But we'll see. I am going to go to two questions from the audience, or comment questions. One of them from Alan. Alan states, did Margaret Thatcher and Angela Merkel have difficulty on the world stage? You learn a lot as 4 years as VP and being live in the Situation Room. My comeback to that, and I think that's a fair comment, Alan, but my comeback to it is Margaret Thatcher, she didn't have to deal with the kind of China that we have now, and even the Russia situation is completely different. But I agree that Margaret Thatcher definitely grew into this role. None of it has to do with male-female, but I am saying the perspective of certain countries that have different cultures than ours that may be impactful, which is why I asked it. Relative to Angela Merkel, like, Alan, you're kidding me. Like she made horrific mistakes, terrible on immigration and a whole bunch of things. I think, and I was in Central Europe in Germany relatively recently. I know they're number 3 in manufacturing. I get it. There's many positives, but I see challenges there of her leadership. Male, female, I don't care. Just that leadership of Merkel was not good, in my opinion. Now, Jason, you're more verbally fluent in traveling the world. How would you have an answer, and maybe agree with Alan, I'm not sure, with Thatcher and Merkel?
Right. Okay. First of all, hire based on merit, not based on women, skin color, LGBT, etc. Higher based on merit. Thatcher, much of it was probably during peacetime, wasn't it? And, right now, and what I said, okay, when you look at one of the greatest books, right? I went through hundreds of books, on leadership, business, also, kind of faith, and all sorts of books, right? One of the best books, it's a hard things about hard things, written indeed by Ben Horowitz, right? A16Z. And, it talks about peacetime CEO versus wartime CEO. We are in wartime in steroids right now and tomorrow, 2025 and beyond, okay? You need to have a very strong wartime leader, wartime CEO that could really reduce the probability, minimize the probability for World War III, which is the most devastating. Hey guys, if World War III starts, in some ways, it started already. Cyber, it's been going on for a long time. Just some factoid for you. In fact, one of the well-known CEO from China, tech CEO in Silicon Valley, I absorbed a lot of insights, right? Even close to 20 years ago, the guy says China was already spending close to $100 billion on cyber. That was 20 years ago. Okay, cyber World War III started already. Okay, America's super astute, right? Come on, look at the spy agencies and all that. We're super effective. That started already. Then other World War III, conventional, air, ground, sea, space is a big concern, right? Nuclear is ultimate thing. If nuclear happens, it's not like, oh, hey, let's escape to the mountain. We're okay. Get in the bunkers, we set. No, you're effed. That's it. Okay? Billions of people are gone. And then the infrastructure, the ecosystem is not there. Even the billionaires with bunkers, it will last for a while, but not forever, right? It's not like you're perfect Noah's Ark. Things don't work like that. So back to women, Thatcher became a well-known good leader. Merkel, she and I were in the same room at the B20 summit in Germany, right? Because I'm part of the G20. We're in the same room together. And, I admire her for being an articulate leader. She's an articulate leader in the EU. Absolutely. Yes, she made some massive mistakes. Over a minute, bunch of illegal migrants. A lot of Germans are not happy about that. See, it's a smaller variation, not derivative, but subset of America, right? It's like because it sucks up our resources. And now German did it out of good intention. And I love what the Germans did in terms of their repentance for the Jews and all that. Wait till you go to the old Jewish ghetto, get a walking tour, and then go to that. It's amazing, right? So Germans did a great job there. So it's not about women and men. Come on, guys. Let's focus on more important things. So be merit-based and really get the best resources, solve the greatest problems.
And there's another question that came in from Sam a little while ago. In today's age of mal and misinformation, with crime and statistics being a part of it, what sources of news should we follow? And are we getting the truly best picture of geopolitics? Are there any specific sources that you prefer or like, Jason?
Well, Family Office TV is one.
Oh, of course. If that's not number one on the list, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Right, exactly. And then go for sources where, I want to make sure every single soul, every single person in this audience really recognize some of you might still be gaslighted. You don't even know about that. It's a subconscious thing. Make sure you become self-aware about what's really going on. Okay, there's a lot of, you look at a lot of kids, right? Mental health is a bit of a related issue here. It's a big issue. But when you look at the deaths and all that per capita, we're at the safest level in the world, in world history. But how come mental health is a massive issue recently, right? Then you analyze the causes and effects, right? Don't spend too much time on symptoms and effects. A lot of people do that. It's right. And that's part of one reason I exist. I guide them to look at the causes. You upgrade, you fix the causes, right? Your causes are your beliefs, your mindset, right? And then your thought processes as well. Those could be honed. When you look at a lot of kids that walk into adults and then mature adults, right? Okay, look at the influences. Starts with a family, okay? And then you got a K-12 education system. And then you got a higher education system. And then you got the mass mainstream media. You got the social media. And you got your echo chambers, okay? And then you analyze all the inner character subsets, what's been good, what's been not good, which parts have been truthful and useful, which part have I actually been gaslighted, been deceived into. I better wake up, right? So when you look at those, when you analyze all those subsets, you'll realize you're true to yourself. You're not really what I call under the devil's spell, right? Satan. A lot of people here don't agree with the same because they don't understand the word. And I'm not here to be blatant, but if you study God's word, the Bible, there's a lot of great principles in there that are just incredible. In fact, a lot of the leadership authors and gurus out there, Peter Drucker, Stephen Covey, they're devout Christians. Right? This is kind of paraphrase part of the things in the Bible.
And just to remind our audience in a little bit of balance, there's incredible deep thinkers, incredible philosophers, people and politicians that are of Muslim heritage, of Jewish heritage, of Hindu. There's a diversity of interests and people will make their own religious choice. I've come around a little bit in the last year or so to decide to be more faith-focused, but I am a big believer in separation of church and state, and in my opinions apply to me, my actions, and my family, and I don't want that to leak into the political world. In theory, that was one of the great things about America, but and I actually do have a discussion on this topic coming up in September, so stay tuned. Right, in terms of maybe wrapping up on that answer a little bit from my perspective, I'm a big believer in thinking for yourself, but we all have some level of input that we take before we decide to make our own decisions. For me, I enjoy the work of Ian Bremmer. Ian Bremmer to me is somewhat left-leaning, but that's okay. I want to have a diversity of opinion that can cause me to think. I'm not looking to go into everything that I only want people that I agree with. I do enjoy some of the people that I've learned about from platforms like X, from Zero Hedge to Newfall to George Gammon, even Tucker, although I disagree with him on some things. Those are all sources, and I do force myself to watch other networks that I may totally disagree with so I can understand some perspectives that they have.
Right.
We have a couple of additional comments coming in and bring them on. I don't want everything to be positive and rosy. I want to have diversity of opinion with the audience as well. Jason?
Let me add to that. When it comes to the sources of information inside Jam, absolutely, right? In fact, learn from everyone, right? Learn from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, etc., etc. Okay, and you could decide, you could filter based on your mindset, your skills, and filter them, and absolutely learn from direct talks like this. The podcasts are great. A lot of podcasts, right? YouTube is actually a great source of learning. So, I spend easily somewhere in the double-digit percent number of hours per week on applied research, right? Make sure you learn from everyone, right? And then you make your own decision, make your own independent decisions here. I got so many Muslim friends. I got so many Jewish friends. I got so many secular friends. I got so many, friends that are Christian, Catholics, etc. I love them all. That's how it works, right? And at the end of the day is what is true. Make sure that you're not being gaslighted and kind of mix what's really true than what's rolling.
And audience, I will get to Sam and Marjit's comment, but staying a little bit on that topic, then coming back to it, a little bit back to Harris. And again, I'm trying to be open-minded and fair, but could I argue more so than the Republicans? To me, Democrats have represented more of what I would deem to be a deep state. The concern is who's pulling the strings that the people didn't even vote for. I understand, let's go with Biden won the election. Let's even go with Harris, they win the election. I could be down with that. But what, not just mentors, who are powers that be? Is there a cabal? And you look at the Democratic Party, and I potentially look at Obama, I look at Hillary as being part of people that we did not vote for in this very moment that may be pulling the strings. I know some of you will argue, well, that doesn't happen in the Republican or other party. Of course, I think it's more extreme from my perspective, and those are things that would, quote unquote, bother me. The other comment or question that I'll go into, in my opinion, I think Kamala Harris made a poor choice with Walz as vice presidential candidate. First of all, it's not in one of the swing states. Now, he's an old white guy, but maybe she wants to have a diversity from her perspective on the platform. I'm sorry. I looked into it earlier today. I was familiar with him in the past. He is, in my opinion, and I'm letting my personal subjectivity play into it, I understand that. He is extremely woke. Extremely woke. Way more than Biden, and more, in my opinion, than Harris. And I'm not comfortable when I see that as being leadership that I want in this country and representing the world. I promise you, I'm not a huge Trump advocate. I almost wanted an alternative that I could consider. But now that is completely from my perspective, only me, not even representing my family, just me. That is completely off the table. Jason, give it to you.
You're not alone, my friend. Okay. Ideally, if I match one, I wish to have a Dow prize. It's a purple one. Okay. Because the vast majority of Americans be in the center and work together, synergize very, very well. Okay? But of course, that's not going to happen. Correct. Now, you got two questions. One relates to the deep state. Second relates to Walz, Harris' choice for VP. Deep state, it's really common sense, my friend. Okay. These are human beings that are influential, that are not elected. Some of them are careerists, right? And a lot of them actually amass a lot of power. And some of them are leaders, and some of them are just workers, right? Employees. That some of them are actually, kind of work, in these three-letter agencies out there. It's just how the system works. And then some of them, unfortunately, are a little bit overly political. Maybe inputs, maybe they got some incentives or whatever, maybe it's their philosophy or incentives, right? And some of it may be for profit. And one thing that you and I recognize around the world is that you got corruption everywhere. And then part of the corruption in Washington is not a secret. Come on, we're a family office crowd and ultra networks crowd here, is that you got what I call legalized corruptions, national level to state level, all the way to local level. I see that all the time in San Francisco, legalized corruption, right? is like you got budget and you just allocate this and that and you gain favors. And then you got lobbyists that are pretty much representative of some political factions. And lobbyists represent some big corporations who afford to pay the lobbyists to affect or influence the regulations. And you got these think tanks that pretty much represent or promote certain political, choices or whatever, right? And those are kind of modeling tools, if you will. So I think we do need to have a revision, not a get rid of, but a revision. We do have to do some cleanup, absolutely. And that's my response to your deep state part. And then to Waltz, the VP candidate Waltz, absolutely. Now, even though, and the little bit that I read about him today is that he did have a bit of a military background, correct? And then so what the team is thinking that he could appeal at least to part of the middle, maybe to some of the right, maybe to some of the people that may not be certain about Trump. And that's part of the thought process. And then he also did some good things to help some of the disadvantaged and all that. That's fantastic. But Minnesota, come on. Minnesota is hyper woke. And he's been a governor. He's rose up the ranks and he's very articulate. He's probably more articulate, maybe better critical thinking than Kamala. And so I think at the end of the day, it may not be the best choice for them because they probably have Minnesota, I would imagine,
that is locked up to be Democratic forever.
You're right? Now, Shapiro, the governor for Pennsylvania, I like the guy, right? I was, in fact, tempted to praise it. And, especially after that assassination attempt, right? I said, I like this guy. He's in the middle, right? I would vote for him if I were, kind of in that thing. But he's Jewish. And for whatever reason, it's just weird to me, right? It's very strange in some ways. A disproportionate percentage of the donors, right, in for-profit and in educational nonprofit institutions are actually Jewish. Why are you pissing off the powerful Jews that donate? Why are you doing that? It's weird, right? Now, yes, the traditional, the masses of the Jewish Americans have been voting Democrat. That's in the tradition. It's a separate subject. And I think it's going to end up shooting themselves in the foot because over time, Americans overall, on average, are not stupid. We prefer to have a better country.
That is debatable, Jason, by the way. You're was being more politically incorrect than me, so I figured I had to play catch up with you.
I'm about the gaslighting crowd, the gaslighting.
There's two comments. I briefly noted them. I'll kind of summarize them. Then we're actually just about ready to move on to a whole series of other topics. I hear what you're saying. Some of the gist from the audience is half of Trump's cabinet doesn't support his second run. Others are stating that they've known Trump and he does lack character. And again, I'm agreeing that there are some moral and character concerns. I think there's some concerns with his first presidency. And I think there's concerns that he does seem to have a level of concern over him wanting to be dictator, even though he says, quote unquote, for a day. All those things are things that concern me and I would like to see further addressed. When I look at his policies and his stances in today's world, I simply think they're far, far better domestically and internationally than what I see from an alternative. And again, simply my perspective, I could be wrong. That only applies to me. A comment, I'll let you make a comment, then I'll give our 60% done. I want to make a little bit of a broad comment before we continue on. But Jason, if you wanted to comment on my comment.
Ask me the question again, Angelo.
It was more of the audience is generally skewing that we may be underrating the fact that Trump may not be a great person, may lack some morals, may lack some character. Is that the proper example we want to set to our children? And would I trust him? And does he have some level of dictatorship in him relative to if things go wrong? And I think those are fair concerns to have about Trump.
Got it. Now, first of all, to be a great CEO, you got to be a bit of a benevolent dictator. You have to be. If you don't dictate in ways to keep your vision and your key goals intact, you all over them out and succumb to the progressive wokeness, for example. Like, for example, Biden spoke in the military, and all he talked about is like pro-woke, pro-LGBT. That dilutes the spirit and the ethos for the masses of the military, men and women. Okay. So you do need to be a dictator in some good ways. Of course, some people they think that themselves as being character assassinated and all that. One of the things that I advise people, my students especially, and for those who like to listen, it's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Family offices are astute, okay? You have to preserve your wealth, and you also enhance your wealth. You also want to make sure and build or sustain or enhance your legacy. You want to make sure your next gens are taken care of. There's a lot of issues in families, right? And same thing, how does that translate to you? How do you optimize and maximize the outcomes in your own equation? So,
and sometimes the challenge with geopolitical discussions, and I fall prey to this, and I love long form interviews. This probably is going to potentially push on 3 hours, so it's going to be a long one. We have a lot of subjects to cover. However, I think the challenge is sometimes people of wealth and family offices scratching their head a little bit and say, interesting, but how does this relate to me? Now, again, I go back to geopolitical concerns are number one among family offices. So why don't I redirect us a little bit to a little bit more of a broad question and how it does tie in that issue? How can family offices adapt to increasing geopolitical volatility worldwide?
My friend Dan Aniello, co-founder for Carlyle, multi-billionaire, and when he spoke a couple of years ago, he mentioned that the number one risk are governments. The number one risk are governments. And he also states that human capital, the quality is actually more important than financial capital. I cannot agree more. Right? Governments, geopolitical, right? Remember the Soviet joke that I told you, right? You may not be interested in politics, but politics is always interested in you. So first is to understand, is to gain know-how, is to kind of go deeper in understanding how the world really works. Now, the family office here, the matriarchs and patriarchs, principals and executives, yeah, you guys are sophisticated, right? But I don't claim to know everything. But one thing about Jason Ma is that if I don't know certain things that is important to me, I will be very aggressive in learning and convert any weakness into neutral, maybe a neutral to a strength, and strength maybe a super strength. That's who I am. That's part of my character, you see. So start from there. Become a world-class learner if you're not already, yes. And I do a lot of applied research, right? Applied research, in addition to my success coaching, mentoring, rainmaking, building my company, etc., my tech company, running my family business. Applied research simply means deep learning in subjects of interest in a sustainable fashion and apply some of that. Like, we apply research all the time. The audience here is doing applied research as we're listening.
Of course. You did bring up a good point. I think a grave risk is effectively sovereign risk. I did a consulting project 3 years ago for a significant family who skewed to being on the more liberal side, but concerns kind of coming out of COVID in terms of, should I be more diversified? What would be some measures I could take? Should I be out of the big cities? Should I have a bunker? Should I have multiple passports? Should I have multiple resources? Should I own or enroll offshore? Should I own Bitcoin? Should I have an onshore and an offshore plan? And the simple answer to basically all 10 of those is kind of yes, and yes. But weaving them together is a combination of art and science. And trust me, I've traveled the world addressing this issue. I have an upcoming masterclass on sovereign risk and disaster preparedness. And these really go to the point of a lot of the geopolitical issues. Staying a little bit on that theme. So family offices, I'm listening to you. How should family offices diversify their investments amidst rising global tensions?
Well, let's look at a main mission within family office, right? Wealth preservation, okay? And then wealth enhancement, your well-being, including safety, right? Including next gens. Those are the important goals to you, correct? So depending on who you are, depending on your skill set, depending on your taste, even though some SFOs are very much into real estate, they do quite well. And in fact, a good friend of mine, SFO principal, he doesn't know a thing about tech innovation, but that's his way, right? Continuity, kind of income generating real estate's been done quite well. Sentiment, right? Good for you. But you do want to diversify it a bit and kind of spread the wealth a little bit here, but make sure next gen's taken care of, make sure your human capital is upgraded and constantly improving all the time, and get help. And it will depend on who you are. Now, there are one trend that I'm noticing is that more and more, not all, but, the SFO business is that more and more single family offices are directly investing in tech now without VCs or with VCs, etc. Right? That's a trend for sure, because people could understand. There are situations where you invest in, say, defense tech, which I think is very exciting. Innovation, parts of that, whether cyber, online, space, and all that. In fact, I more of a venture that kind of does a bit some real cool things right now. So you got commodities, you got liquid, It will depends on what is going to be your optimal portfolio. You guys are experts. I don't have to say that anymore. But yes, and yes. But
That's a sell back asking topic that I'm relatively, let's go with the word, kind of fluid in, and I kind of hinted at it before. Yes, I would be an advocate that the world is changing. Most American investors, specifically, but even globally, tend to be dollar denominated. Is that going to change anytime super short? No, but should there be a long-term perspective and more diversity, including in currencies, and what currencies to look at? Should there be gold? How should it be stored? Or I did mention some Web3 and Bitcoin. I could mention the value of supply chains and investing in that. I could mention the value of direct investing, including literally in owning and controlling interest and understanding counterparty risks and banking risks. These are all things that are going to be valuable. If I have enough resources as, let's call it, an American family, I know the IRS is going to follow me everywhere. I would still have diversity of friendships, relationships, business interests, banking, financial, onshore and offshore planning, arguably a satellite offshore family office. And I'm going to potentially look at areas like Switzerland. I'm a little more reluctant on Singapore, but I'm not against it. But I'm a little concerned about the China impact and potentially, arguably, for maybe more non-Americans, the United Arab Emirates. These are all things that we could do a deeper dive with, perhaps at a point in the future, but I think are the right questions that family offices and others of wealth should be asking. Jason, if you don't mind, for about a minute, and again, this is a long one, so I don't have my hot cocoa, coffee, and those of you also know I do like whiskey. I don't have one that close by. So, Jason, you got my natural adrenaline flowing, so I don't need these artificial stimulants anyway. What can I say? What I will say is, whether you agree or not, either with my opinions or Jason, I hope you're appreciating the discussion. Hopefully you're both relatively thoughtful and experienced in our own perspectives on these issues, and understand, and I've been in this community of family offices a long time, you may occasionally get 10 or 20 minutes out of the bet that's not recorded, where they'll talk about some of this. There is no one who's putting on multi-hour content dedicated to subjects that probably get me in more trouble than they help me. But like I like to say in my new membership group of SFO Continuity, I really need 30 families. I want 30 founders. That's it. That they don't even have to love me. They just have to believe that I provide value to them, whether they agree with me or not. I don't want sponsors. I don't want vendors. I want proprietary content, great connectivity, and hosting private programs around the country, mainly New York and Palm Beach, but still active around the country and around the world. And they get access to a guest like you that I make an introduction to. They get early access when I start a program where I can make an introduction, or in person, or other connectivity and guests that really can't come on for a variety of reasons. And in person, of course, is how a lot of magic and a lot of how great things happen. So I hope you do appreciate the content on my socials and invites to things I do on Family Office on YouTube and Family Office TV. And I'm reactivating my Spotify and Apple. It should be live by tomorrow for those of you that like to drive a long way and don't want to be distracted by visuals of YouTube, want to hear it in a classic podcasting format. More and more of my interviews are going to go up in more of the traditional format. But those who really believe there's value in joining and being part of a group, I hope you do go to angelorobles.com and learn about the work that I do in my consultative work, my masterclasses, and most importantly, my private membership group at SFO Continuity. I'm imperfect. I've been humbled. I have a lot to learn. But hopefully, I take the attitude of a white belt, a lifelong learner. That's not to say that I'm not opinionated. I am. I'm sure that I'm wrong. Hopefully, not more than I'm right. But I am tackling topics, I promise you this, that others are not. They are not on a variety of factors in the family office world. So I'm a little bit on an island and sometimes hated by some for some of my strong opinions, but henceforth, here I am. Jason, a couple of things, and maybe in the final hour and 20 minutes, if that long, if you don't mind, we could break my old record with Adam Robinson. Adam Robinson and I went about 3 hours and 2 minutes, but let's see. About 60 million people died during World War II. Maybe the number was much, much less in World War I, so it's exponentially growing, arguably, as population and weaponry advances and grows. There are some people that estimated, even if not total nuclear, there may be as much as 200 million people that would die in a legitimate World War III. This is a very, very sensitive topic. You travel the world, you meet with leaders, probably more than 99.9% of even my members to followers. What insight would you have about how impactful, deadly, and changing everything that we know a world war could be in today's era?
It's 1 or 0. World War III is gonna depends on whether what is going to push a button or not, right? And if you provoke and disrespect a guy like Putin, tactical nukes are available in Belarus already, right? Which is kind of, you got Poland, Belarus, kind of Ukraine, and kind of sandwich in between, and you got a little piece of Russia between Poland and I think that northern Scandinavian country, I forgot what it was. And it's going to be beyond devastation. I think one thing could lead to another. And sometimes I'm very concerned about AI. It's still immature in some ways. It's very exciting, right? Kind of Gen AI, and then you got AGI that's coming sooner. Say, right? General intelligence, and you got beyond AGI is going to be artificial or super intelligence. It's beyond human intelligence, and it's good and bad. One thing I'm concerned about is that if you move away farther and farther than how God created humans, we all created equal. I'm not sure whether the big guy up there is going to like that. I have no idea, right? So, and then because of certain advantage, disadvantage, and kind of like certain trading, right? I mean, I have groom kids, graduate at Harvard, etc., computer superstar and all that. They even sent on to Google and work for firms that do trading, right? Programming is like a sport to them. If you beat the other guy by microseconds, you can win, right? So, and in that case here, if the AI, and there's a spectrum of species of AIs out there, they're so intelligent, and we're going to lose some control, and it's going to get to the point where human beings cannot even decipher part of what the hell is going on within AI. That's a concern as well. Then we might enter a situation, we're years away from that. We might enter a situation, it would be absolutely devastating. Then you talk about billions of deaths, not just 200 million, okay? And if 200 million depends on where they die, I hate to say it, it's going to be, the ecosystem effect is going to be beyond negative, right? So if a World War III does happen, in World War II, we dropped 2 mini nuclear bombs. World War III depends on the escalation, depends on the provocation, depends on Putin, and depends on, China. Listen, there are 10 nuclear states, if not 11. There used to be only 2. We're at the brink of a nuclear war, around 1960, Kennedy and the other guy, and nuclear that didn't happen, right? And now there are Pakistan, it's very unsafe, it's a nuclear power. You got Iran probably already has nukes. They've been developing, and they could either organically develop by stolen IP or import it from Russia, maybe North Korea. Not surprised at all. Come on, guys. They're buddy, make money. They may have some North Korean nukes, right? And then Chinese is very influential. They kind of fund, etc., because they want to rebalance the world power. There's a lot of stuff going on. Israel is a nuclear state, absolutely. So that is my greatest concern, is really nuclear devastation. If it happens here, it's not like it's going to be Chinese wall. Anyway, things work, right? And then the atmosphere is going to change, and then the climate is going to change, and a lot of plant life is going to die, blah, blah, blah. And then we're all going to be out.
Yes. I mean, so let's change. I don't have too much to add to it, but I think that was well said. We have an extremely active chatter in our audience today via our webinar platform, and I appreciate that. We're not looking for you to love us and agree with us. I want to have varying opinions, and it's okay. If anything, actually, it's more encouraged. So keep it up. We have a long way to go, so we got a lot to cover, and you never know if you're not live. I've had videos and technology glitches before where things don't get recorded. You never know. I'm hoping this is an amazing near 3-hour interview, and it goes up on my platforms with maybe light editing in a day or two, but who knows? To be live, you're in the moment and you could participate. I'm going to bounce around a real lot now, Jason. So we're going to go really all over the place. Robert noted in the chat, one of the questions that I did have upcoming, it's going to relate to military. I've had multiple military people on my platform over the years. I'm summarizing Robert a little bit. He basically stated he heard a general talk, and we need to be more active in what's going to happen controlling AI and robotics, the future of warfare, a little bit of my words, robotics and drones. And he mentioned, I believe that the general did speak about the value of space forces. And at the moment, the U.S. probably has an edge, but we could make a case that China and others should be playing catch up. Is that the future of what warfare could look like in 5 or 10 years?
Absolutely. Space, cyber, and drones, right? And then nuclear. It's all interconnected. We got to be superior in space. If Elon Musk did not set up SpaceX, we're absolutely effed, because China was able to land, some guys on the dark side of the moon, which had never been done before. And Russia's it's been it's enhancing all the time. So NASA, the government's been sleeping, okay? And the government's been misdirecting funds, and in some ways, good and bad. And luckily, we have a guy like Elon Musk who really are able to drive things face by face, now working very closely, buddying with NASA, and then deploying satellites and all sorts of things up there. Imagine if Russia or China, okay, and there's many countries up there as well, smaller players, are able to destroy your satellites and destroy, part of your infrastructure in space. And without the communication and without the weaponry, defense and offense, we're effed at the country. So you got to be superior in space, number one. Number two, if a World War III start or a major hot war regionally, why don't one player who's just going to say, I'm just going to launch a couple of million bombs. You think your defense system, your missile, you're going to enter your dome's going to cover all that? No, someone is going to come through. It's going to kill civilians. It's going to kill people. So, and then China's got a heads up on that, Iran, etc.
NASA heads up on hypersonic nukes.
Massive on hypersonics as well.
We played slight catch up the last couple of years, but it's slight.
So finally, we're catching up. We're catching up on the hypersonics. It's a major concern. A lot of the older machines out there, it's large carriers like sitting ducks, right? Yeah, they have anti-missile defense and all that, but you think you're going to capture all of them? If one big missile is going to hit you, the carrier, $5 billion is going to drop. That's it. You're done, right? So it's like, if you're still building a lot of next-gen tanks, you're making the military industrial complex happy. These guys are for profit, right? I respect that, but it's a wrong allocation of resources. So you got to get stronger on what matters on next-generation warfare, defense, and all. So in summary, I agree, right? It's really space, cyber, drones.
And Robert also mentioned you're the general, and I met a general actually in Newport, Rhode Island a couple of weeks ago. I'll looking to get him on the show in September, so that'll be a lot of fun. But the general spoke about, and I've had this conversation on my platform as well before. In the past, I could argue the world reserve currency belonged to the country even more narrow than just the most powerful military, the most powerful navy. And yes, we have some amazing naval and battleships, but like you just hinted at, some of them are very outdated, very, very expensive. And in today's world of drones, of increase in space, that is a vulnerability. And I don't know a great answer to fighting wars the way wars used to be fought. I could argue, read General Flint's book, 5G Warfare, where things are changing rapidly, where warfare could be less so bombs, more so the minds of people, more so cyber attacks, more so psychological control, more so, how about this one? Family offices aren't going to want this one, controlling and manipulating financial markets.
Absolutely. Why do you think I said human capital is more important than financial capital, quote unquote, from my friend, the Carlyle co-founder? Lots of wisdom, right? You have to keep improving yourself because your mindset, your skills, my mentorship frameworks, 4S and 3Q, then it leads you to make better decisions and better indecisions, better actions, and better inactions. Because especially from powerful leaders, you make wrong decisions. Sometimes it's hard to fix. The entrepreneur is different. You make a wrong decision, okay, you fix it, you learn, and you move on, right? You know, kind of like the education system. Sometimes as a high school student, you know, you make a big mistake, actually goes on the record. It's a flaw of the system. So it depends on the context of the system you're in. And hyper important to really keep learning, keep not being gaslighted in all the time. I hate to use the word gaslighted, but it's like, you know, deep, dark, deceptive messaging. Don't believe. Understand what's really going on and help solve real problems, right? So,
of course. And we're approaching almost 2 hours. I'm going to break a little bit of a rule. The plan was basically for my members only after the 2-hour mark, so they get some exclusive content, could deeper interact. I am going to open this up and leave it or open to a little bit more broader audience. My members are most interactive relative to my webinar feature. And again, happy to make an introduction to Jason. And when we do, or he comes to New York, we'll do an impromptu program over breakfast or lunch. And there are certain things and topics, as open as Jason and I are, where we just won't talk about them from either of our perspectives and more of an open platform. So yes, in person, privately at events is sometimes where you get the real deal. So you have to join to keep on seeing that. Let's hit it. TikTok. So is TikTok in China, I don't know, looks very different than the TikTok here in America and the West, which seems frivolous and foolish, where in China it appears serious and educational and intriguing. My opinion only, it is absolutely a psyop and to be impactful and negative long-term to America. It is weakening the minds of our youth. It is absolutely, and give me all the hate you want, audience, it is teaching men, and yes, I specified that, to be weak. Because they know men that are weak, that aren't going to get married, that aren't going to have children, are going to be good for their long-term plan decades out, causing problems with America. And I know incredible entrepreneurs and people that do nothing politically incorrect. They teach entrepreneurship and how to make money, and good luck them getting positive algorithms on TikTok. It just doesn't happen. But if you're a girl who wants to dance and do stupid shit, then, oh my God, you could take off and get like 10 million followers or maybe more. But this is a plan. It is absolutely a psyop against America and against the West. And in my words, to weaken our people, specifically American men, making money, entrepreneurship, confidence, marriage, having kids, the whole kit and caboodle. Give me all the hate you want, audience. And maybe Jason, maybe you do too. I don't know. Go for it.
Yep. Oh, so deep. Excellent question. TikTok. Okay, let's step back. All right, negative distractions is a cousin that lead to deception, if not directly deceptive already. Deception could lead to destruction. So when you look at what China and Russia is doing, directly and through proxies, right? Part of proxies is through social media and maybe even through paid for directly, indirectly mainstream media. They want to distract you. You're absolutely right. In TikTok equivalent, it's not called TikTok, it's called something else in China. Okay. So the government has so much influence or control over ByteDance, the mother company. And I know people with VCs, so people that are Americans and Chinese as well. And, they want to distract you. But when you look at the content in China, it's all enriching, educational, really mental protein, nutritional for your mind and soul, right? So the government very astute in doing that. While in America, one of the things you're noticing when you step back, because if you're not being gaslighted, is that people keep on being distracted everywhere, all over the place, right? And then part of that, a powerful instrument is TikTok. So you see it when you search certain terms, the response will come back with more entertainment, with more distractions. So they want you to keep worshiping a lot of entertainers out, rather than say worshiping something more, or worshiping nutritional your mind, right? Your faith. More important things like building your true, strong education mindset, things that are a bit more nutritional for your mind and soul, right? So, and why do you think a lot of Americans worship entertainers more important things, right? So, really a lot of distractions out there, and there's a deception. Remember, when you look at, say Trump 2.0, was thinking about taking out TikTok, right? But now Trump is sort of saying, you know what, let's consider kind of keeping TikTok, because I don't want Facebook, Instagram under Mark Zuckerberg to win all the business, or most of the business, if they're shut down, right? And TikTok right now, as a lot of you know, it's a bipartisan thing within Congress in Washington. They want to consider you either sell it, so America kind of keep control, or to kind of block it in America, right? When it comes to AI, hey guys, 3 parts. That's about compute, data, and algorithm. So TikTok is algorithm and data, right? NVIDIA, et cetera, as well. Right? So, and, it's going to be very interesting to watch in terms of how both presidential candidate camps are going to talk about TikTok in the fight. So before November. But you're right. You're right. And then part of that is not only men, because making the men more woke, more stupid, frankly speaking. I call it intellectual stupidity, right? Or not so intellectual stupidity. It's distraction. It reduces your advantage, reduces your productivity, reduces your country's advantage. It's very hideous. You see it. I see it so clearly, you see. So we have to be self-aware and realize that's what's happening. Got to be careful. Don't overspend time on social media and all that. Why do you think the social media powerhouse CEOs in Silicon Valley, they themselves limit their own kids in terms of time spent per week on their social media platforms? Hello.
And one brief comment to the audience, we may have lost audio. Our recording audio is working fine with me and Jason. It may be my preset settings to be 2 hours that I set up a little before we started to save the more private time for my members. And there may be other factors relative to weather as well. So the good news is this is being recorded. A worst case scenario, although if you can't hear me live now, it won't matter till after you get the released version anyway. But we will have the final version that will be up, including in my podcasting platforms, as well as my family office on YouTube and family office TV on YouTube, possibly as soon as Thursday. So it is possible that, unfortunately, even those that are members for the after 2 hour mark, if you can't hear, that might be a problem. Or if you could hear, let me know in the chat feature. But on that note, without further delay, at least those that hear this in a recording will get it. Why don't we go very round robin on a variety of different topics? Every one of these topics deserves a deeper dive. We're just not going to have the time for it. Where do we stand from a geopolitical issue, Jason? And maybe this is more a U.S. and China thing. And you hinted at it, and I've done many programs on it. AI.
Okay, China has always been pretty dominant on having data lakes, not just data pools of data, right? surveillance and all. It's very superior. However, when it comes to the current fashion, it's about Gen AI, upcoming AGI. From a technology algorithm, from a human capital standpoint, the U.S. has an edge for now. But China is hyper aggressive. In fact, I know the connection of mine, he's probably the most smartest AI or profit sector, former American senior executive, but also very famous seed. And he even wanted me to invest in his AI companies and funds. I kind of politely did not say yes. And I got to be very careful. Now, China is very aggressive. They are behind when it comes to some parts of AI right now. But they're very aggressive, very resolute in developing. And it's kind of like developing capability for war, right? Are the two nations preparing to go to war to each other? Not really, not quite. But are they preparing the capabilities to go to war against each other? Absolutely. Three-dimensional and also cyber, right? So, AI is very exciting. I think, once again, there's a spectrum of species of AIs. It's very exciting in terms of, I use AI all the time. Okay. I use GPT, began to a little bit of Gemini, started using, Claude under and Anthropic, and I cannot wait until XAI's blog comes out. It's been very helpful, right? For those that I care about and myself. And it's a great thing. Then I could spend more time on more important things and help me do some of the work that the AI will do a better job on. And AI has so many vertical applications as well, right? And for students, whether you're in K-12 or higher education, you can use AI to help you learn better, right? It's a tool, but don't plagiarize. Don't just have them write your essays, right? There might be a jail term. Just kidding. So don't do that. But the ethical, and some institutions out there, when you apply to college, some of them say that if you use AI for that, you're going to be caned, right? Not good. So I got to be very careful, be very ethical, and it's optimization, maximizing kind of a context. I am concerned about if we allow, we meaning private public sectors, and the government's a concern as well, exciting concern, but the governments are not fast enough. It's impossible for them to learn and speed up exactly what the private sector is doing. At the same time, you don't want to stifle innovation, right? Kind of like that's Europe. It's which is one weakness that they have. Okay, EU is very trigger happy when it comes to regulation control, right? And
I mean, if you don't mind, on that topic, could you name a European company that has entered the Fortune 500 that is not more than 40 years old? I think the answer is it may be zero. Like, it's really, really limiting. And I've been there. It's a little sad. Amazing food, great culture, great people, great architecture. And I think there's some areas that the spirit of entrepreneurship and doing more is there, but regulation, like I'm half Italian. Like, go to Italy, there's so many amazing things, but there's massive bureaucracy, which I think is getting a little bit better. It's just difficult. They also tend to tax you to death too.
Exactly. ASML is one of the exceptions, without which the modern world does not exist. Applied materials, lab research, kind of manufacturing equipment, TSMC, other fabs and all that, separate topic. Absolutely. Are there lots of talent in Europe? Absolutely. Are there wasted talent? Yes. Right? Because they are shackled by regulations, right? Which is a main thing we must do in America to unshackle ourselves with the stupidities I see all the time with current administration. All the anti-business, anti-innovation, anti-entrepreneurship, anti-tax, anti-startup mentality that
they don't say that publicly. It's the actions they take in their regulatory environments in hard to have control. And when it impacts the mindset of the people generation after generation, they don't have what we would call in America that spirit of going out and doing it, of failing, of getting up, of getting knocked down, of being resilient, of almost encouraging and respecting a entrepreneurial journey that we have.
Right. My friend Steve Forbes, right? His team was kind to invite me to the Forbes Global CEO Conference 8 times. I went to 7 times. He's a fun guy to talk to. And I joked with him last time, hey, Steve, you're going to run again? I love your back tax, right? I'm going to support you. It was a joke. I know he's not going to run again, right? But it's kind of like, Hong Kong and old days in Singapore, flat tax 16%. And by doing that, you literally give back billions of hours of productivity to Americans. Of course, it's not going to happen, right? When you keep the tax code and all that simple, it's an example of regulations. Good regulations, bad regulations, right? Do the math. 260 million adult Americans. You spend X number of hours, just a couple of billion hours per year just on stupid tax, right? Of course, the tax firms, accountants, I love it. They make money. But imagine we regain billions of hours of time available to Americans to do more important things. Can you imagine that? So likewise, when you unshackle the entrepreneurs, the innovators, even venture capitalists, right? It's amazing to me to see a few billionaire VCs gaslighting, bullshitting the world about the thing. Things don't work like that. You want to make it easy. Even at the B20, G20, we've been injecting language into the policy recommendations to the presidents and prime ministers, right? They unshackle, ease the regulations for entrepreneurship. Because most businesses, most jobs are actually in startups and SMEs, right? Small, medium businesses, right? Most businesses are actually family businesses. You want to make it easier for them. You want to make it easier for entrepreneurs to hire, to really make a difference, to create great products that really serve the customers and return money to the investors, right? To the founders, executives, etc. So regulation is a massive, massive thing, So,
and completely unrelated, a different subject hinted at very early on. Warren Buffett very strategically sold a significant position and turned it into cash from his Apple holdings. He is sitting on a stockpile of all stockpiles. That level of dry powder when the markets go down to get you tremendous quote unquote power. We look at NVIDIA's Jensen Huang and him converting a lot of quote unquote stock and redirecting some of his holdings in NVIDIA. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deeply into this. I'm sure there's other cases as well. Their timing was really, really good. Are they just really smart? Were they lucky? Or do they know something that we don't?
I think it's all the above. Okay, first of all, I think I would not over worry about these periodic market corrections. It's just a correction. Come on.
I agree.
When you look at the multiples and numbers, it's just another mini irrational super. But that's how American markets are, right? We lead the world, we drive the world, and all that. And when you look at the charts, look at the numbers, look at the macro, look at the micro, look at the companies, fundamentally, without tech, we're screwed as a world economy. Right? It's really tech and plus a few other staples that are important. Now, Warren Buffett, he's one of my heroes, by the way. Charlie Munger, one of my heroes, right? 99 still rocking full time, and Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, two of my heroes, right? And never retired. And he had a philosophy. He has a philosophy of never sell and hold. But there's nothing wrong with taking some money off the table. Now he's got a couple $100 billion in the bank, and there's something wrong with it. And it's not. But when you look at the market cap, come on, NVIDIA's got over $3 trillion. One point exceeded Microsoft. It's our market cap company. Kind of NVIDIA, Microsoft, and then you got Google, and then you got Alphabet, and you got Amazon, you got Aramco, and etc. Facebook, $1 trillion place, right? So, and then NVIDIA, the market cap got down to about 2.5 trillion from 3. I think it's a little bit reasonable because people are still buying, and some companies are hoarding the GPUs out there, and so the compute sector within the AI massive sector is benefiting. It's going to keep on going on for a while, but Jensen is very, very smart. He's looking at the next thing already, next sort of innovation, but still more compute. I'm a bit of a concern about Intel. But I think overall, I would not, kind of get too worried about these corrections out there. I am concerned, like you, Andrew, about the $35 trillion deficit debt, because we keep on kicking the can down the road, and we have to sustain the U.S. hegemony, including
Of course. Now, that subject I'm more excited about. I have multiple macro guests coming on in the next couple of weeks. We'll do a deeper dive. As long as, in theory, we're the world reserve currency, it's not quite as bad as it looks, but it is bad. And how do we address issues in GDP? What impact will AI and robotics and the changing world have on all that? Stay tuned. Speaking of big tech, we actually hinted at this earlier, and you're in the backyard. Is U.S. big tech in Silicon Valley, is it effectively too woke and too bloated? Maybe not as much NVIDIA, but I look at companies like Google and others, it almost seems like the employees are the power has shifted too much to them. And that causes hierarchy and overly reliance on hierarchy, on what I deem to be bureaucracy, and a level of entitlement and disrespect to leadership and management where I'm seeing some negatives. But I admit the pendulum may have had a slight swing back to center, but you're right there. What are you seeing?
I've been in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, only for 50 years, right? So and my older daughter, she's a senior software engineer at Google. I love Google to death. I think highly the people that I know there, from the very top down to people at the working level. But given a large bell curve, they are 100, I forgot what they laid off the tens of thousands over the recent times, and they're still probably 130, 140, I forgot what the numbers are, like employees. So when you have such massive data points, so many people, you're bound to have a small fraction that are influential, that are in the far left or a little bit in the far right, but not so much, right? More on the far left, more progressive woke. And unfortunately, some of that, the influential people are in positions where, without being checked and balanced so much, they could actually have a lot of power to affect the algorithm and manipulate the data and feed skewed data into the machine from machine learning. That happens all the time, right? So recently, when you do Google searches, the results come out to be a bit skewed, right? That part I don't really like, right? I wish they would fix that. And I think, when you look at Facebook, right? It's a great company, but I hate the algorithm. I hate part of the content moderation. I think it's too dark, too biased. It's quite clear based on pattern recognition. But when you look at Mark Zuckerberg, right? And recently he sort of like Sam Altman, come on, the King Kong, one of the czars in AI. He wrote something very nice about, President Trump, you are a hero, blah, 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 said some good things. Because that was before Kamala got elected, because they're thinking that Biden's going to lose, Trump's going to win. And, why don't we start proactively maybe bridge a potential relationship, and then especially with Zuckerberg, right? TikTok and all that, I'm going to get out of business. We're all pro-business. I respect that. We're all pro-business, right? But are things total war? Absolutely. I think it's too much. Surrounded by that, it's a little bit too much for me. In San Jose, which is the biggest city in Northern California, heart of the hearts of capital, people I say all the Silicon Valley is like hearts it. So like Mayor Matt Mayen, he's all among the Democrats. I like the guy so much. He's a Harvard alum, but he's the best mayor that I've seen in the biggest city in Northern California, including Silicon Valley. He's literally getting shit done one at a time, pragmatic. He's also setting up a real-time dashboard to measure its performance about the metrics that are important. Homelessness, crime, this and this and this. I wish that a lot of cities in the nation, in the world, would model after him. And he's doing a great job so far, right? So he's pretty centered, and he really cares about the masses here. I don't see that much wokeness in this underlying agenda, which is refreshing. So.
Very interesting. Again, I do have to bring it back for our hardcore investors and those that are looking to say this is great. It's a data dump. It's knowledge information. But what value is it to me as an investor or family office? So I'll knock off a couple of questions. How should family offices approach investing in emerging markets given the current global uncertainties? Reminder, for much of the last 20 years, kind of make the argument that emerging markets relative to risk have underperformed.
The Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so don't listen to my words as financial advice. Not at all. I'm not one. It's my opinion. Like in this talk so far with you, conversation, it's a mixture of facts and opinions, right? And when it comes to emerging markets, you could find in different ways, vertical, horizontal, different geography. Israel is not an emerging market, but yet faith that Israel is going to emerge, right? It's got some of the best hard tech, deep tech out there. So I really believe in them. And when it comes to, depends on the asset classes that you want to put your money into. You have to assess what long-term risks might be. I got friends of mine, for example, a friend of mine, also principal of a single family office, I mentored for a couple of years, both his boys, right? Cut out doing very well. And, he's got multiple citizenships. He's a British guy living in Singapore. Citizenship also in New Zealand, in different places, because he's afraid of potential Armageddon thing, right? And a little bit on the extreme side, very protective, but I kind of learned from him as well as one of my own learning sources, right? So I would say at the end of the day, I find that most people still like to put money into the US. Because no matter how bad or good it is, it's still a bit of a safe haven, right? Especially if, let's say, Trump's going to win again, then business is going to get excited. Absolutely, right? And some of the businesses that might be on the Harris side might be awakened and go, you know what? Trump is actually not that at all. He's really helping me, right? And I would be careful. I would be very careful. And, I recently went to a conference that talks about getting different citizenships and parking your money in Malta and kind of different places in Europe and kind of Latin America, Caribbean here. Okay, all right. Okay, that would be part of your diversification strategy. Do some homework. You have to place bets, right? It's your own risk assessment. It's your own risk tolerance. Are you high risk? Are you low risk? Right? What is your intestinal fortitude for risk taking? Right, and shelter away some of the money ethically of the year.
There are some family office questions a little bit related to that came in. Maybe I'll just give you a quick opinion on it. You could chime in. Angelo, how can family offices protect their wealth against currency volatility? Well, first of all, in the U.S., the dollar, like Jason just noted, it may be the one-eyed giant in the land, but it still has that one eye. It is king. It's doing well. Do I believe there's concerns longer term? Yes. Do I believe we should be more global citizens? Yes. Do I think that we should potentially, for larger family offices, set up satellite family offices with boots on the ground in certain locations? Yes and yes again. Am I somewhat intrigued by a little bit of diversity into the Swiss franc, the Norwegian krona, the Singapore dollar in small numbers? Probably yes, yes, and yes. Jason, any specific opinion with your travels, maybe more specifically with Asia, relative to currency volatility?
A lot of countries out there are still kind of pegged to the US dollar. Okay. Now, obviously, China wants to keep increasing, keep gaining on their power. And ideally, if they have a magic wand, they wish the RMB to be the currency in the world, right?
Of course.
They are wise enough to realize that it's not going to happen anytime soon because the ecosystem is so intricate with the US dollar as a through line. And in order to...
Let's not lie about it. The U.S. government will covertly, over the top with their military. I think they would do anything. And I mean anything.
Exactly.
Which is what kind of our three-letter agencies have done.
My mouth, right? And that's a good part of good application of available resources, right? Strategically, tactically. So China realizes that, and they're kind of probably stepping back a little bit and realize that, it's going to take a while. Well, one thing about China is that they're very strategic and focused, so, and build up the foundation, like they've been building a foundation in which is a real concern because Americans been sleeping, private, public sector, rare earths, right? Key minerals on that. They own quite a bit of that, Africa, a bit of Latin America as well. And even Ukraine, come on, guys. Ukraine is not just hunky-dory and try to get Ukraine don't win. Ukraine's got a lot of minerals and rare earths in there. one thing that the American government's failed on is that, stupidly wasted should have prevented. Let's waste trillions of dollars, not to mention lives lost. Iraq and Middle East and all that. We did not even get the oil. How stupid was that, right? The military, industrial military complex make a lot of money, right? But we did not even secure the oil. So if we're going to help out, it's our right to negotiate in a way we get some benefit from it, right? It's not like we're going to drop out of NATO. No way, we're always part of NATO, right? But it's good not to, when you're the leader in a gang, in a family, you're the leader, you're the clear leader. Sometimes your siblings, your sons and daughters, will take advantage of the situation and kind of freeload on you, right? But if you get to be young adult, you're working, it's a right for the patriarch and matriarch to make sure you're groomed, you're becoming more skillful, more with a mindset, with more training and all that. You take on some of the responsibility, right? Same for NATO. Germany is still not spending the 2% in agreement, right? That's freeload. You can't do it. Now, a lot of countries in NATO stepped up, right? So it's a bit of an analogy to your question, I guess.
Of course. And another one that's a little bit more investment-centric. What strategies, Angelo, can family offices employ to mitigate the risks they write associated with inflation? Well, I think the verbiage inflation hedge is greatly overused. What was an inflation hedge 2 years ago may not be one this year. Gold is an inflation hedge. For times it was back in the 70s. Maybe it's actually more of a deflation hedge. So I think that changes. You could argue land, farmland, real estate. There's a variety of subjects, the US dollar. I mean, that's complicated. I will go back a little bit to owning and controlling private companies in various verticals and sectors and a level of diversity in that. Cocoa earlier this year as a commodity did incredible. Maybe that's an inflation hedge. So am I trying to be a little comical? Sure. But I think the answer of just saying that, gold and or Bitcoin is an inflation hedge, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's complicated. It's adaptable. You need to have a long-term perspective. And there's a variety of things that have kind of took that mantle for a day, a month, maybe a year, maybe longer of a so-called inflation hedge. Long-term, the S&P 500, the triple Q. Long-term, not in the short-term, an incredible inflation hedge. So I think it's a little more complex than you wanting me just to say gold, even though I do love me gold.
Right. I got two beliefs here, right? One belief is that, the overall macro meta solution is to become more productive as an economy, okay? By really beefing up our innovation, unshackle some regulations, kind of use tax in a way where Reaganomics kicks in a bit more effectively, right? In the new generation, and I think really I really believe that we have the opportunity to revive in some ways, not revive, but unshackle the full potential of America a bit more, and get rid of some of the shackling, stupid regulations and distractions, if we will, okay? And don't get so deceived, so that we could allocate a bit more brain trust, more power together in moving in one direction. That'll be very unstoppable for America. That'll eat inflation like a little piece of snack, okay? And of course, gold bonds and all your, safer bets and all that. Yeah, sure. Park some money in that. Depends on your own diversification and asset allocation strategy. Depends on who you are. Depends on your beliefs and your values and principles as well, right? In your family, what kind of legacies you want to have. Take care of your next gens. I'm very big on that. And I think overall, go back to technology. When China third planet, we haven't talked about it, okay? So it just happened recently. Xi Jinping and all that. And one key finding on that, which to me is not a surprise, is that they're doubling down on really beefing up technology, because they believe that innovative technology is going to really help drive and beef up the economy, right? In China, we all know that they are absolutely suffering from degradation, cratering of the real estate market, because the masses lost a lot of wealth, right? The people that own real estate. And all these Evergrande, country born kind of went down tank, right? It's like market cap dropped by 89%, etc. And not to mention a demographic issue, and over time, China might decrease the population faster than the US. That's a major issue to them. And you have other major issues as well. But the Chinese government, they're very resolute in terms of their vision, dictated by the current top, emperor-like leader out there. So overall, I think, does that answer your question or not quite?
Yes, and actually you did beat me to the punch, although we can't spend as much time as I would like on it because there's about 3 subjects that we have to cover. But one of them, we'll get right into it. I'll allow you to add on to what you said, and that relatively is going to be about China. Certain things you may want to consider are going to be their security and infrastructure, but some of the challenges they have in terms of demographics, and there's a variety of others. So why don't I allow you a chance to expound from a geopolitical perspective? Remember, as an investor or family office, what I need to know, why it's important, and what I could do to either hedge risk or make money.
Right now, unlike yesterday, much of the Western investors are kind of backing off from China. And the key reason for that, of course, companies big and small, right? Many of them like to do business because of sales, right? In China, it adds to the top lines and bottom lines. China is a massive market, especially for consumers. And the enterprise market kind of began with them as well, but massive consumer market. So from a sales standpoint, export standpoint, or even some joint manufacturing, whatever JV standpoint, it's good. It's good for both countries, right? From an investment standpoint, let's face it, investment takes time. Typically takes a certain time to kind of get your return on investment. Kind of sometimes takes a long time, many years, right? So it's no secret that a lot of Americans are kind of shying away from that right now because of uncertainty. Because of what's going to happen. If China suddenly have a new regulation, then it might affect the potential liquidity of my investment and returns. So because of that, from a family office investor standpoint, you're going to be very cautious, right? And we all know that China is hyper aggressive and very strategic, very resolute in beefing up their kind of the AI, cyber, and kind of they already have a dominance in many parts of Earth's minimum and minerals, and they've been loaning to a lot of the developing countries, underdeveloped countries, with the agreement that they're going to pay up, they're going to own you, right? They executed on that quite a bit already here. And there's a bit of a backlash, but they've been very good at in that. They've been very aggressive on space, Navy. Now, China Navy exceeded the total number of ships in the U.S. So in a conventional thing, then yours is bigger than mine, kind of. But one thing about China is that when it comes to actual external warfare, they're actually not that experienced compared to America.
That is definitely true. We went out last time. Not that it may matter, but when was the last time that China won a war?
Zero. And China used to be great. They used to be a couple hundred years ago, used to be very dominant in parts of international, and then went insular again. There's a lot of history to that. So from a human capital standpoint, they actually don't have the complicated, complex set of sophisticated experiences like Americans, right? So we have a one-up on that. But they're very aggressive in developing the capability. One thing about Chinese, I'm Chinese American, right? So I got the blood. One thing about smart Chinese is that they're very good in being world-class learners. One thing I noticed when I go to China, talk to national, provincial, state level, local government, in fact, when I was at the B20 summit, G20, Jack Ma and all that in the same room here, Hangzhou, which is a big city right next to Shanghai, the mayor invited me to drink with him in a gala table. He was on a second table. We were like partying all night long, right? But one thing I noticed about these government officials is that they are very curious on learning. They're very inquisitive. When you go to Washington, do you think all of them are like that? Not really, right? No. They have a little difference. Human capital quality, right? They're very inquisitive, very aggressive about learning, you see. So that's something that Americans must wake up. Stop being so damn woke and distracted. Learn, become better, become more effective, you see. So infrastructure, absolutely. China could build a complex bridge in 2 days. It takes a freaking Bay Area 15 years to add another station to the park, sometimes, because of all the lawsuits, inter-county, inter-cities, the dark side of capitalism. I'm a capitalist. I'm for that. The regulations and politics, and I'm going to get elected, all the dark side that blocks, right? So in a way, sometimes if the CEO of a country has more influence and power, his heart and mind in the right place, it's actually good to have. The problem is that when you have bad CEOs that are dictators, that's pretty bad, right? Like Venezuela, etc. So China, overall, I think the strengths, infrastructure, superior. You go to parts of China, I live in Silicon Valley, okay, probably the most powerful place in the nation, except for DC, if not the world, in some sense, when it comes to tech here. But I tell you, Angelo, one thing that frustrates a lot of us is that part of Silicon Valley is like third world infrastructure. I'm not kidding you. It's like, oh my God, man, I'm a damn third. What's Silicon Valley? What's wrong with you, right? So do a better job, cellular coverage, the roads, satellite. So China's got a one-up on that. They have they're way ahead in manufacturing capacity, manufacturing prowess. It's good that we're showing some. The CHIPS Act is good and also bad at the same time. I give the Biden administration credit for that, but it's also bad because it encourages certain big tech to be more dominant. But what about the little tech? The little techs are where a lot of innovations come in. So as a government, we need to be more effectively embracing the little techs, right? So family offices, investors pay attention to what's moving on, right? There might be avenues, if you believe that we can succeed, those might be potential investment targets. So there's more things about China supply chain. That a lot of companies are kind of diversifying from China's supply chain because of risk. It's very risky, right? What if one day China said, "Guess what, guys? I'm gonna regulate your asset in China. It's a massive asset, like a massive plant for cars or for chips or something like that." Then what are you gonna do? You're gonna sue? You'll never win, right? They're gonna protect you. And the great decoupling in some ways, we integrated in many ways economy, but it happened already. The kind of two universes, the Chinese universe and the American urban universe, that started already. It's going to take time. Taiwan, Hong Kong, etc. Those are separate subjects. I guess I'm going to.
Kind of was my next question. I got time for about 7 questions. Well, I'll go a little round robin. If you had to give us the 2 minutes on Taiwan and Hong Kong, maybe 3, what do you got?
It relates to all the massive amount of elections around the world this year, doesn't it? Taiwan, yes. Not to mention Mexico, not to mention right? Not to mention a few other places here. And China hated it because the new Taiwanese president is is not for integrating China in any ways that China wants, right? Now, you have to understand the Chinese psychology, especially from the psychology of Emperor, President Xi. And I appreciate that in some ways, right? You have to respect them, whether you like it or not, you have to respect people, right? So to him, when you look at the resume, you look at Xi Jinping, look at Mao Zedong, right? They got something tangible on the resume. I'm oversimplifying. I'm just kind of speaking in terms, right? But Xi Jinping did, very resolute, and he doesn't have anything big and tangible on his resume, his legacy, right? And then China would lose a lot of face if Taiwan is going to be independent, it's going to be a nation, it's not going to be part of China, because that's a belief system for a long time, right? So eventually, I think it will happen. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I don't think so. I don't think they're that well prepared. While the U.S. and Quad and AUKUS and all that are preparing to help kind of alleviate certain potential situation in Taiwan. I think from the American standpoint, investors and all that, listen, the greatest asset in Taiwan is TSMC, okay? And the semiconductor manufacturing plant. Semiconductors, without which the modern world simply does not exist. And if China owns it suddenly, right, and then block out the U.S., we can be absolutely screwed, but in entire world, the U.S. and Western countries are going to be screwed, right? So that's a main driver right there. Not to mention the geographical location of Taiwan in the South China Sea, right? It's a very nice geographical location. And so that's Taiwan for you. But once we fix those problems, and it's going to take a long time to have sufficient and adequate dependency on semiconductor manufacturing, the fabs, right? Which would take years and years. And you know, then our worry might be a little bit less. But then again, the geographical disadvantage that we might have, right? So you think of it, what outcomes are working from Americans, and then you think of it, what outcomes are the Chinese looking for, right? And what outcomes are Taiwan looking for. So that's Taiwan for you. Is that sufficient for Taiwan? Otherwise, I'll move to Hong Kong.
More than sufficient. Briefly on Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, I'm from Hong Kong. I speak fluent Cantonese, right? And, British Hong Kong, Chinese American immigrant. And I went back to Hong Kong easily over 100 times, including drop and insert, probably 150 times, right? Fly Singapore Airlines, usually Hong Kong's not different country, back to Hong Kong, say hello, do some business, have some drinks with friends, karaoke, or nice Hong Kong seafood dinner, dim sum, come back home, right? So a couple of million miles, lots of Asia Pacific across Asia, now called Indo-Pacific. Hong Kong's sensational, used to be for decades and decades, 80s, 90s, 2000s, a little bit until recent times. We joke that, hey, it's Asia, New York City. Right? It's got the New York City vibes, it's dynamic, it's fun, very international, super free, right? So today, when you go to Hong Kong, unfortunately, the hardware looks the same, the beautiful skyline. So I talked to one recent guy in one of the major media outlets in America, living in, and then other people as well. The hardware looks the same, but the operating software completely changed. You know my point? So after the massive riots, the massive protests a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, etc., and think about that. Millions of people out of 7 million population, that's a massive double-digit percentage people who protest against the freedom concern with China. Okay, it's public know-how, so I'm not saying anything new. And then riots and deaths, and it's a very unfortunate situation that happened here. And then all China had to do after that is that, okay, here's a new regulation, here's a new law. You cannot protest anymore. If you did, you're gonna be in jail. They executed that like wouldn't be. There you go. So today, when you go to Hong Kong, it's less fun, right? A lot of people left already. Of course, you do business, it is related to business, and it's the culture changed quite a bit. You're not as free to speak and talk. And usually in any cultures, any countries, culture takes a long time to implement the change, right? But imagine if you have a drastic change in culture like that, imagine how it makes you feel. If you have resources, you would have left already. A lot of people left, right? But for those, I feel sorry for the youth in Hong Kong that are just kind of helpless, no resources. And some of them can do well, but a lot of them are already in despair, I see that. So it's a bit sad to me about what's going on in Hong Kong. Now Hong Kong is treated as part of not 4849, it's part of mainland China. Right? I got friends that are government officials and billionaires and people like that and all that. And you have to be a lot of some of them have to be CCP members, right? Life. You have to probably include some American citizens, but you have to conform, right? Make sure you don't cause trouble and do business and all that. In a way, you do have to pick sides. So a lot of Hong Kongers have to pick sides. They're part of China.
And Jason, staying round robin and keeping it quick, India, rising power economy, global powerhouse, largest population, dominance expected GDP 2070. But we kind of have been hearing about some of this for a long time. What's looks good on paper and what's reality?
India certainly will be emerging as a upcoming super because the market is huge, right? And it's still a democracy. And the leadership overall, it's pro-business, right? They might be a little bit not for certain, come up too open to different faiths, some of that. And every government, every regime is good, right? So when I was at the G20 summit, kind of right in advance of the G20 leader summit in New Delhi, and I'm very lucky. I get kind of treated when I see kind of said was going to sit up on the eat people in a gala dinner, kind of organized by one of the powerful ministers. And you can imagine a lot of people in there. I met with that. For example, one of the people I talked to was a rather high-level official from Russia, right? His job is to really kind of help manage part of the relationship with India. Let's just say in very important areas. And what I learned, not surprised to me, is that they have a good relationship with Russia, because Russia sells oil at a discount to India. India needs oil, right? So some of the resources, the supply side, they work together. And now politically, is Russia more aligned with the West, with the US? Absolutely. But certain subsets of their lives, of their organizations or ecosystems, depends on what subset you look at. There are parts that they are total friends. There are parts they might be opponents. There are parts they might be frenemies, right, or cooperators. India, like many countries surrounding China, they are rivals, absolutely, from a geographical, military standpoint. But India also has a big problem which been going on for a long time, decades, and that's corruption. That's corruption. It's not a secret. Okay, you talk to even a private sector, a lot of Indian Americans, and the joke in Silicon Valley is that Fremont is the Indian American headquarters. I got so many Indian American CEO friends, right? You know that we laugh all the time. Hey, you live in the headquarters, right? And we're connected. We see it. But corruption is a major issue. It's a major issue. I go to, one time, I spent, I was in a nice hotel room, one of the nice, what was an Hyatt Delhi, and in a gym, I met one of the government officials, and I said, hey, I'm Jason Jaguzu talk, and I learned that he's a government official. He enjoys a lifestyle that he has, right? He doesn't want to give that away. Same thing for Washington about it. And but corruption is a big issue, I think. So I cannot propose any solution to that.
No. And again, these are all subjects we could do much, much deeper dives, but we literally are trying to go somewhat around the world. And even though it sounds like heading up in 3 hours is a lot, honestly, some things we're just being a little late on, but hopefully impactful for the audience to dig down, do their own research, think for themselves to make their own decision as a family of wealth or a family office. These are all incredibly impactful and valuable to you. Very briefly, any specific opinion about Javier Milei in Argentina, the impact of what he's doing there, good or bad, and why family offices in the world should care?
Very exciting. Is he perfect? No one's perfect, right? But without controlling the crazy skyrocketing inflation all the time, you don't have a country, okay? And he's kind of a, people joke that he's kind of like a mini Trump and all that. But in that particular context, in that country, Argentina, which I went to because I was at a B20 summit, I love the Argentinians. We have some great friends here.
Great sit. That's right.
If they're here, I go to Buenos Aires. It feels like kind of older part of Europe, right? It's like older European descendants that are, French, German, Italians.
Mexico. They're going to have a change in terms of their presidency. It's an interesting choice.
Right.
The impact from a global perspective, and again, why should family offices care?
Right. The previous regime and the current regime, which is a bit of a kind of a carry on, right? Of course, now you have a woman who's Jewish by faith. I don't know how devout she is in Judaism, but it's more on the left side. The Mexican government is very astute. They play it carefully, working, with the cartels and all that. They deal with different international, and I respect what they do quite a bit. I think it's a good partner there. I would be, from a family office investor standpoint, make sure that even though you have the new arrangement between, kind of U.S., Canada, Mexico here, but look underneath the skin, right? Some of our manufacturing is actually finance, a lot of Chinese impact. So even though it's made in Mexico or whatever, you get some special tax treatment or tariff treatment, but there's a lot of Chinese influence, right? And a lot of them might have even higher ownership than you think. So kind of look into within your DD, do some homework, and I'm hoping that we're going to be more effective starting early 2025 when it comes to the situation and border, kind of minimizing the illegal migrants here. So that you have to work more effectively. And in the past couple of years, the current regime administration has not been effective, right? Have to be more effective working together to kind of stop the source to happening in transporting through and being allowed to enter the southern border, right? So that supply chain has to be better, well managed, I think. So if there's some business along with that, things are more lifted up or more open for investment, look into, So, so
Okay, Jason, we're just about there. I'll just broadly make a comment. Again, this is a long form. It's very detailed. Broadly speaking, geopolitics and family offices by nature, there's going to be agreements, disagreements, and various rabbit holes that we could have went down further. But even though it's long form by podcasting standards, it's just so broad in some ways and not deep enough in others. But again, causes you to think for yourself. You do not have to agree with either me or Jason. If anything, I kind of sometimes prefer if you don't, and you could share your reasons why so I could learn. But I'll also add, in representing from Jason's perspective as well, his opinion is his opinion. There are things that I would disagree with, some things I agree with, and you have to think for yourself. We all have a different perspective and a different mindset. And as opposed to hating on someone or wishing there might have been a different way with words or something like that, it kind of is what it is. And the opportunity for you to cause you to think for yourself and all that. So again, some things I'll agree with, some things I didn't. I'm not lacking for opinion. Jason is probably even more. Jason, I can't say there's been many guests on, if any, that are less politically correct than me, but you probably do beat me on that. There's almost a little bit of respect I have to give relative to that. I sometimes need to be a little bit more politically correct around the edges. So, kudos to you for speaking your mind. I rather have people be open, honest, and direct. They might be wrong, but open, honest, and direct, so we could throw the topics out there and a little bit like we used to be able to have discussions that may get a little heated, but are respectful to each other's opinion so we could each learn. If you are wrong, you learn. So in some ways, if you're willing to be open-minded and adaptive, there's benefits to, quote unquote, you being wrong and adapting your opinion in learning. I think it really is only 2 more subjects left, and we can't do any of them any sort of justice. But the one relative to Ukraine and Russia, and again, we could do 2 hours on it. I'm going to really simplify it. And again, we'll try to keep it within 2 minutes. It's a little bit of a 2-part combo. Is Ukraine badly losing the war? And the sanctions that the West did against Russia, they do not appear from an amateur from the outside looking in to have worked so well.
I think Ukraine is really not winning in any significant fashion. I wish that the war would stop today, okay? And then there's a bit of a divided country. And Russia is not going to give away Crimea, for example. That's a given, right? But there's a lot of assets in Ukraine and the people that we would love to save a lot more money and lives and kind of not to get Russia seize some of the rather raw assets, right, that are valuable. And we're not winning. And the Russian war machine is pretty powerful. And the sanction helped a little bit initially, but that also galvanized Russia having clearer channels and thicker channels, working with other markets, right, to get what they want. In fact, you look at the Russian GDP, has it really decreasing later? Not really. And when you look at the power base of Putin, there might be a bit of I cannot say because I'm not in that thing. And I'm just praying that we're going to come to a conclusion to end the war soonest, right? Where it is it's a decent compromise. But is Ukraine winning? U.S. we've been spending hundreds of billions of dollars, so $100 billion. Like the war could have been prevented. It could not have started if you communicate, respect, and kind of do things the right way. Now that it started, that big mistake could have been prevented in the first place, and the cost has been tremendous, right? And now NATO and there's a lack of clear, benevolent, smart leadership in the European bloc, that they are provoking Putin a little bit more than what I like to see. And because Putin's not going to back down, and also the powerful base around him, and it's kind of one for one, tit for tat. So something you're going to put here, I'm going to put this, and it's like you're increasing the probability for something more escalating. That I'm very, very concerned about. So, and that's one reason that just this current Biden, the current administration, I cannot even imagine the Harris administration would be effective. But do I have a lot more faith in the Trump administration to do that? Absolutely, right? So Trump comes in as a leader, someone is actually fair in some ways, which is good in certain contexts. Is he going to negotiate? Is he going to that? He actually, so that's something that we have to place bets. So very complicated.
To me, this is also fascinating. I'm effectively an amateur. What they say about Joe Rogan, I think would apply to me, not to put myself in Joe Rogan's class. He's 1,000 times more popular, and I think Joe Rogan is awesome. But effectively, we're seekers. One subject where, yes, I'm more than that. I guess you could argue a thought leader when it comes to the narrow confines of single-family offices and best practices in a single-family office. Then, yes, I will get my cowboy hat about 10 feet away and I will throw it into the ring. And still, I want to be treated as a white belt who has a lot to learn. Right. But in a lot of these subjects, they interrelate to family offices, and I'm intrigued by them. But I consider myself an amateur that is a seeker, that is curious, that asks questions, and is trying to know the truth. And a truth that, depending on conditions and timeline, adapts and changes. It is ever so hard. So I'm so fortunate to have guests like Jason Ma and others on. The joke that I give, because they're often highly paid consultants, is I'm getting hours of their time for free. You guys are teaching me for free. I greatly appreciate it. As we're heading to the home stretch, we are going to have to cover in probably 3 minutes, and I need to have somewhat of a hook here, Israel, Hamas, Iran. And we're going to keep it very limited. It is something that is more deserving of far more significant time. So we're going to go extremely high level. Before we do that, and that's a little bit of my click at the end, I'm actually going to allow Jason an opportunity for a minute to 90 seconds, and I may do the same, to give a little bit of a close before we get to the last question and how we could follow him and reach out to him. Jason, if you don't mind, please.
Okay. Well, go to my LinkedIn. And the profile picture, you see Steve Forbes, and that's my LinkedIn. Feel free to LinkedIn connect with me. But say that, we met. I enjoyed you talk with Angelo on his family office TV. So I can search keywords, okay? But the best place to start is to go to my family business, 3EQ, THREEQ.com. Everything's there. My contact information, free talks and articles, and what I do, why it's important to me. And I also am building with my colleagues a hyper exciting tech company that we are very picky. We work with only single family office and ultra network investors. That thing's going to disrupt the massive industry. But we're doing something big and disruptive. But 3EQ.com is a good website. My email, jma, at 3EQ.com.
Awesome. And I've known Jason for a number of years. He's very diverse in his knowledge, very fluid on geopolitical and economic. And obviously, many of you know him from my prior interviews on the amazing work he's done as an advisor with families on leadership, on the rising generation, and helping them understand the value of being a global citizen, finding your purpose and passion, and the importance and value of education. And Jason is a wonderful resource for anyone to have a chance to reach out to connect with, to follow on social media, and I highly encourage it. You do not have to agree, and I know, with everything that he says. It would be a little weird if you actually do. The same with me, or the same with anyone else. But the opportunity of surrounding yourself with talented people that you have access to, you're kind of getting a little bit of, the 50 top people in my dream team, kind of giving you a level of free access to. So I hope you enjoy that. From my perspective, again, I know these are sensitive topics. I know that sometimes they're gray and the conditions of right or wrong do change. I also know that I'm wrong probably a hell of a lot of times. Again, am I an expert, and I hate that word, on certain things? Yeah. A single family office and best practices in a single family office. And everything else, and even that, I'm a seeker, I'm curious, and I'm trying to have better questions to help get me answers to things that I'm actually curious about that are important. You can learn more about it at angelorobles.com, where I do have active masterclasses and consultancy from a global perspective, and my private membership group at SFO Continuity, which for now is going to be limited to only 30 founding members for incredible proprietary resources, insight, connectivity, and in-person dozens and dozens of programming. So I hope you have an opportunity to enjoy it. I'm not afraid to tackle subjects that are more sensitive than what most everyone looks to cover within the family office community. And if you really want to be a global family, if you really want continuity and that true wealth preservation, it's deeper than just investing, although investing is a very, very important part that actually some people don't respect and understand enough. But the opportunity for culture, for governance, for everything that relates to family offices, and the impact the families could have on the world, a positive impact, are all things that are very, very important to me. I'm sure that Jason and to others in the community as well. So having these open discussions that are not vanilla, that are not plain and down the middle, that are not only regurgitating the same subjects in short form with no context and no depth over and over and over. And sure, I don't need a million people to love me. I need people to say, hey, that dude, I may not even like him, but I think he's putting out some interesting content and doing valuable things that I think I could learn from. I mean, come on, even members of my family say that I'm not really that likable. I already know that. And I'm very active in social media and my 2 YouTube platforms, Family Office, or technically at Family Office, and also at Family Office TV, and new, relatively, my focus on Apple and Spotify within a traditional podcasting format. Just type in about one more day, Angelo Robles, Apple Podcast or Spotify Podcast, or the tags in my email, and you shall see it. Okay, on that note, and yes, it has been a busy summer, and I think I could speak for Jason as well. One, thank you all for your time, and 2, you're hearing this at a certain point in August of 2024. Conditions change like this. You may watch this a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, 3 years from now, and our opinions can be totally different. It depends on the circumstances that are happening. So understand this is for educational and really more entertainment purposes, and our opinions at this given time, which of course are subject to change for our own perspective and as new information comes in. The final question that we, again, just timing isn't going to work to make it long for. In that, I will frame it this way. Iran's Revolutionary Guard sent on this past Saturday that Palestinian militant Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was slain in Tehran by what they claimed was a short-term projectile with a warhead. The New York Times cited unnamed sources that it really was an explosion that killed him. That was a bomb that was covertly smuggled in the guest house where he was, quote unquote, staying even 2 months ago. Now, again, how that happened is probably a little less of importance, more so that it occurred. We have grave challenges and very sad. Anytime there's innocent people dying and children, it's terrible. As a parent, nothing could be ever worse than that. And it does make me have empathy and make my heart bleed. This is a very, very complex scenario that we're trying to cover here in 3 or 4 minutes. So I will tie in from a geopolitical perspective, Israel, Hamas, Palestine, and the impact of Iran and possibly forces like China and Russia backing Iran. And how is Israel able to hold up to that? They are losing badly the global PR war. And when I mean badly, I mean badly. What they did in Iran, which was quite a covert operation, that was targeted. I think people could understand that. So, and David Sachs and others have spoken about this as well. We understand the response. We understand that something probably had to be done, but was their response that has escalated the correct response from a global perspective, and could it have been more targeted? A little bit like what we saw this past weekend. Says this is a hot button, Jason. I think I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and I'm giving this one to you.
It is so complicated. First of all, Iran, you have to understand Iran, right? And when, let's say you sign a contract, right? You think they're going to honor that? No, they say they're going to think that, no, the contract is done in the Western ethos. I'll sign it, but I may not do it the way that I'll fool you, I'll deceive you, because I have a more important goal in mind, and that is to get rid of Israel as part of my spiritual overall vision and mission, right? And over the years, the resolve of the Iranian regime is just so against Israel, and there's a lot of biblical history. I'm going to skip that with that as well. And I do feel that Israel could have done a little better job rather than say like get to Vietnam on Gaza. They probably could have be a bit more kind of rifle than more shotgun. I have no idea, so I cannot really speak to. That's my opinion, right? And that said, it is important for them to kind of minimize the effect of Hamas, like the Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen. Hezbollah is actually more powerful in Lebanon as proxies for Iran. Iran is separated by Iraq and Syria and Jordan, right, to Israel. So it's not easy for them to directly attack. And then the Mediterranean Sea, you got a lot of U.S. carriers, etc. So it's not very easy for Iraq to directly attack Israel. So they have to go through proxies. And by going through proxies, it's less evident, less direct. So easier, it's kind of a derivative, a way to being blamed and all that, right? But you all know who the key players are. And Russia and Iran have a strategic alliance. Same for China. In fact, Iran's been selling a lot of oil to China. Had the Biden administration done a much better job, and that all of that would have been, a lot of those problems in the supply chain side would have been better. Now, Iran actually, and then also kind of the ransom paid and all that, is like they got hundreds, it's not almost, they got hundreds of billions of dollars of cash, and they can create a lot of weapons, a lot of capacity, capabilities to go after the ultimate goal, to wipe off Israel. Here's the thing, if Israel is so integrated, US and vice versa, okay? It's so integrated, it's like one body, separated by geography. And there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of technology, military that are, let's just say that it's very integrated. So if Israel is wiped out in the Middle East, the world would be a very dark place, okay? So the US and the Western and many other markets out there will be in a very dark place. So that cannot happen. So the US must protect Israel, whatever it takes to make sure. And part of that is really kind of a little biblical, but I'll skip that. So overall, let's hope that the upcoming potential more major war with Iran directly and through Hezbollah there's lots and lots of missiles, lots of weapons already existing in the geography of that. Right? Let's just pray that it's not going to turn out to be worse for anything. It's going to escalate. And if that happens, then it's going to totally affect many other places, right? So, when it comes to public markets and stock and all that, what really moves the prices and all that is going to rumors. I don't know if the rumors are completely out. Once the news is out, then it doesn't really move the market so much, right? So we'll see. We'll see on that. It's a massive concern. It's a major, major concern. So I'm more concerned.
Interplay with Jordan and their real alignments, and more importantly, probably much bigger and more impactful in Jordan longer term, Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is they're very smart, super powerful, right? run by a family business. Come on, a lot of countries.
Indeed.
Singapore is a family business. Let's face it, okay? And kind of, it's a family business, right? So God is a family business. It's my joke, right? You get your point. It's a family business. So, but Saudi is playing all sides very astutely, okay? And Saudi, for the first time, is not 100% dependent on US dollar when it comes to oil, right? They are also kind of transacting with RMB. But are they for US? Yes. Are they for China? Yes. And are they kind of looking at things in a strategic position? Absolutely. Do they want to get directly involved with the wars? I don't think so. Because the Americans are kind of, are doing that, right? Sometimes I feel that we're kind of overdoing things, and sometimes we're underdoing things. But Saudi would be in the backdrop. It's a very, very powerful case. Now, if Iran is going to go more directly provoke Saudi Arabia. Of course, Yemen has been an issue, and it's a more minor issue, but it's also a concern. One thing people don't talk about, Angelo, is the Gulf or Sea of Hormuz. The little narrow. People don't talk about it. It's amazing. Okay, it's only 40 miles in a narrow path, right? If Iran decides to block it off, of course, you got U.S. Navy assets around there. But Iran decides to block it off, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait is going to crater. They cannot get out. The ships cannot get out, cannot export oil, gas, and all that. Okay, that is actually a critical juncture. If Iran does something to that, the world's going to be a dark place. It's going to affect the global economy more. That's something that people don't talk about. So,
wow, no, that was great insight and so true. And this is a very, very complex issue. I wish we could have gave it more time. Man, we are 3 hours and 6 minutes plus. I think this breaks my Adam Robinson. So, Jason, you hold the honor, all my years of having, for now, it might be broken, but for now, the longest, whatever, webcast, podcast, YouTube, whatever you want to call it, definitely live that I've ever done. We kind of did give our close a couple of minutes ago, but if you wanted to have maybe a minute to give a recap, well, that'd be impossible. A parting comment, I'll give that floor to you.
I like to end with a more positive note. I think if we do it right with the right regime in place and kind of more empowering, more encouraging, really focus on the regulations, okay, and then fix part of the setup in Washington. Okay, really kind of lift out a lot of the stupid regulations and inject few empowering regulations. That's pro-business, pro-startup, pro-entrepreneurship, pro-investment. Okay, and I keep thinking about A16Z, Ben Horowitz, Martin Andreessen. If the Kamala Biden administration is going to, in fact, they're trying to get through a law that'll tax private holdings increase. Holy crap, that's going to crater the entrepreneurship world, right? Investment world. Don't do that. So, I think that we actually have the opportunity to really revive and leverage on technology, build a greater economy, more productive, build a stronger, smarter military. Then we're going to enjoy another decades and decades and decades, 50 years plus, right, of American dominance, American being number one. So China will always need it too. I will believe that could happen. Okay? But we have to have the right leadership in the White House. So I really want to encourage people to really take care of your next gens, right? I'm one of the resources, inject more empowering, pragmatic, strategic beliefs, and really focus on excellence and merit over victimhood events, like what you mentioned, Angelo, right? Have a more productive mindset. Don't be gaslighted. Pragmatic abundance mindset over scarcity mindset and work mindset. So that's my closing statement.
Wow. I mean, come on, 3+ hours of Rolex and Ma. How fortunate, or maybe others feel otherwise, but how dare you? This was great. Like, I really enjoyed it. You're so insightful. Again, I may agree, disagree in certain things, and that's all good. It's encouraged. And the opportunity for me to learn Again, those of you, if you don't subscribe, I mean, come on, what's up? Go to YouTube at Family Office and at Family Office TV, subscribe. Don't forget my new Apple and Spotify in terms of the podcast. You could find it. You may have to wait until August 8th before it's up, and you do a search and go and subscribe. And I may put some unique proprietary content on that to make it also a little different and to be enticeful to go and subscribe. AngeloRobles.com is the website. I hope you enjoy these diverse and enticing and somewhat sometimes edgy conversations. They absolutely are impactful to families of wealth, entrepreneurs, the family office community, and really all aspects, and the value that our community to give back in terms of to society, in philanthropy, creating businesses, doing the right thing. And to think that geopolitics does not play into that is just utterly ridiculous. Like I started off with, I am glad that the surveys of UBS billionaire families and so many others have shown, and this was before a lot of these challenges that have arisen in the last year, that geopolitics was a number one concern and should be, inclusive of, relative to what's the name of my membership organization, SFO, continuity to continuity and family continuity. Thank you all for your time. Thank you so much, Jason Ma. Thank you for the audience. Feel free to reach out to me with feedback, always looking to get better and always looking to have incredible guests on, open to your suggestions and introductions as well. Thank you so much. Jason, thank you for all your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you. Bye.